2,
1.
1.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 31 of the Resurrected Win Energy podcast. As ever, my name is David, and I am sitting 2,021 miles across from Mr. Alex Aldridge. How are you doing today, Alex?
Ahoy, hoy, my good man. I am doing very well. It's nice that we both dressed up for this awards ceremony.
Yes. Oh, should have put on a tie. So yeah, Alex, you want to give us a rundown of what this podcast is going to get? Because it's not our usual podcast. It's not, but it's sort of harkening back to days of yore when we did the odd top 5, top 10s, was it we did?
Oh yeah. I mean, historically in every podcast format we have done Game of the Year. In fact, our first ever podcast in this guise were the Games of the Generation, weren't they?
It was,
Last generation.
Have we still got that on this spreadsheet that we're looking at? Top 10 Games of Generation.
Yes, that's episodes 1 and 2.
Excellent.
So we're going to follow that format again, I guess.
Yeah. So basically, we've got some categories here. Well, I suppose it's prudent to run through the categories at the top of the show.
Well, you can run through the categories. First of all, what I will do is I will inform the listeners that we are doing our Game of the Year awards based on games we covered this year on the podcast, and only those, apart from a few select awards. So the list of games, we had 23 games that we covered this year on the podcast, which is pretty good going. It's almost 2 a month.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good going, especially because there's some big old boys in there.
Yeah. So I will give everybody just a rundown quickly of the 23 games that were considered for these awards, and they are Alien Isolation, BioShock Remastered, Days Gone, Death's Door, Doom 64, Gears of War, Ultimate Edition, Halo Infinite, Left 4 Dead, Limbo, Max Payne, Parasite Eve, Portal 2, Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil Village, Rogue Legacy, Sea of Solitude, Sonic the Hedgehog, Streets of Rage, Super Mario Galaxy, Super Mario World, The Final Station, The Medium, and The Return of the Obra Dinn, or rather, Return of the Obra Dinn. So they were the 23 games that were considered for these awards. David will now tell you what those awards are.
So, how are we doing this? Are we doing this top to bottom? Have you ordered these?
Yeah. I tried to, unless you're not happy with that order.
No, that's absolutely fine. We're going to have...
I've done the odd compliment sandwich a couple of times, if you haven't noticed.
Oh, yeah.
Something good, something good, something bad, something good.
Good effort. We've got best story. We've got best gameplay. Most bullshit. Best surprise. Best 2021 non-podcast game. And best old non-podcast game, worst game, and then bringing up the arse of the podcast with best game of 2021, which of the games we've covered, which hopefully you've all played and listened to and enjoyed.
Yeah.
So will we just dive in, I suppose?
Let's go through best story then.
Okay.
As I just read all the games out, you can tell everybody the nominees. I guess you're going to have to avoid doubling up.
Yep, okay. So the nominees for the best story of 2021 Winners U Style is BioShock, Alien Isolation, Max Payne, Resident Evil 7, Return of the Obra Dinn, Parasite Eve, and The Final Station.
That is true, sir.
I made it without doubling up there. I'm quite pleased with myself.
I was very impressed because, every time I saw a double, I was like, oh, don't say it. Let's get Parasite Eve out of the way. Don't think that's going to win, but
that was a weird one in that, because I was looking at that and I was kind of thinking, it's like, oh, Alex has got that on his list. Should it be on my list? And I was like, no, I didn't like it in the slightest, but I was oddly compelled by it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it was written by that guy, wasn't it? By that scientist. Based off some book by a scientist, and it's all about like cells and regeneration, and
because we looked up the book
parasites.
And it's like 900 quid or something if you wanted to buy it.
Yeah. And I just really liked her partner, the really angry guy who dove out of a helicopter at the end. And of course, the baby and the weirdness of that.
Mitochondrias, is that what it was?
That's it, mitochondria or whatever it was, yeah. That guy did his research.
He did.
It was it should win most well-researched story of the year and also most expensive source material of the year. But Was it scary? No.
No.
Was not at all. It was just fucking stupid. And remember, it also should win an award for quickest restoration of a previously burned down opera house of the year.
Yeah.
Which they inexplicably go back to, despite the fact that that's where everything started to go wrong.
Do you know what happens in subsequent Parasite Eves?
Not yet, but I will at some point in my life. No, I've got no idea. I think no, I don't. I have no idea. I can't remember. I'm hoping that the nerdy scientist from Japan finally gets his end away because he was trying at the end, wasn't he? And then was it Daniel's son comes in and cock blocks him?
Absolutely cock blocks the life out of him.
So yeah, that's my mention for Parasite Eve. It's not going to win, but it was shit enough and silly enough to be worth a mention. Talk us through the final station.
The final station is another one in which I felt like a bit of a fraud. Is that the right word for putting it on this list? Because if you were to say what is the story to this game, I'm not sure. But there was something that compelled me through that game. And if you said
multiple times again,
since I seem to be on a bit of a train of presenting myself hypothetical questions. I don't know who's asking me these questions. Just maybe the hypochondria guy, mitochondria.
Yeah,
midichlorian guy. He's asking me those questions. Did I like the game? Yeah, I really, really like the game. Is it a game why do I like the game? I guess this is getting existential quickly. The gameplay loop is functional. It's quite fun doing what definitely. You're doing. I'm not sure that I can say it's very simple and not overly complicated. So is it the gameplay that I like about that game? I'm not sure. Maybe a bit of it.
Yeah, I like the gameplay.
The atmosphere, I think, is what really compels me through that game. And I'm trying to equate atmosphere and sort of so I know I'm making a mess of this, but so what I like about that game is the world building it creates and the bleak nature of it in the feel of the world more than perhaps the actual story. So I guess
I like what it shoots for.
Yeah, I guess it gets cut because it's still, I think deliberately so, but it's deliberately obtuse, isn't it? So
well, yeah, and it's not very well written in terms of English translation either.
There's grammar mistakes all over the place.
Yeah,
I think we're gonna have to cut the final station.
I think we said this on the podcast. It stays with you, and this is probably one of the only stories where, having played it, I then had I felt compelled to understand it better. Mm-hmm. And to look it up and do some more research on what the fuck actually happened.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is the mark of a good story, and sometimes is the mark of one that's just probably a bit too hard to understand or a bit too obtuse, as you said.
Yeah.
But the world building, this would be right up there.
Yeah, I guess so. And I guess it's important to distinguish these things if for nothing else, to allow us to move forward in our Game of the Year podcast discussions.
I don't know why I didn't put Return of Obra Dinn on here, because that story was really good.
It's really it's quite simple, I guess. In a linear fashion. Yeah, if you remove the gameplay from the game, odd sentence to say, but if you remove the gameplay from it, it is a pretty straightforward mutiny story that just has some monsters in it that.
Yeah,
there's not much to it, I suppose. So you're right. If you look at it in a linear fashion, it's just a mutiny story, really. And then people go a bit mad, and then there's just a sort of mass killing at the end of the story. Maybe this gets cut. It's sitting at number 3 on my list. So I think ultimately
being able to tell the story in a linear fashion makes you feel clever.
Mm-hmm.
And there's merit to that. The way it's told, obviously, is its key point, because it's dissected and sort of sporadically just given to you, almost in reverse every single time, in a way that really opens things up.
I guess this is the thing I'm not tripping myself up over, but of having a hard time sort of uncoupling is if this is an award for best story, how much, if any, does the gameplay matter? Because I guess delivery does it?
Yeah,
does,
the narrative.
Yeah, it does matter for that, because it
delivery,
could be the best story in the world, but if it's not delivered properly, it's going to push players away, and it's going to affect the way that the story comes across and is absorbed.
I would say you could also put Max Payne in this category as well, where the story's delivery is almost greater than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I think
Max
it is.
Payne is a pretty similar, pretty sort of straightforward noir revenge story, but the way that it's given to the player and the comic book panels and everything like that, and perhaps the fact that it's such a sort of a downtrodden guy getting revenge and getting trodden on throughout the entire game and just continually fighting back. And obviously all the dialogue is really cool, but that goes into the presentation as well.
It's also probably the only game in this list that I would so, like, someone says, is the story good? I would say yes, for a game of its age. Like, I'm not sure if the game came out today we'd be particularly excited or discussing the story, because you're right, it's just a simple revenge tale. It's you can remind me, was Max Payne anything before this game? Was it a known property?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Because in that case,
because it was all written by the guy who his face is Max Payne.
Sure. Because I can't help but look at the narrative in Max Payne and just see the Punisher in it.
Yeah.
And then I just think, because the Punisher's older than Max Payne, I just think, like, have you just watched that movie or read the comic and decided that, I'm going to do my own one of those? It's just some guy goes on a revenge tale murdering anyone connected to the death of his family.
Yeah, exactly. He completely gives up being a policeman and having any sort of moral standing by the end when he starts joining with the Russian mob.
One thing. So maybe do you want to cut it? I'd be happy to cut it now. But it's also number 2 on your list and number 4 on my list. So if you want to keep it and do a pass at the other games and then come back around, I'm quite happy to do that. I want to hear you.
Are we cutting Obra Dinn?
I think I would cut Obra Dinn. Yeah, It's a funny one. Looking through the games on our list, I found myself struggling to be overly stimulated by any of the stories on this list, really. And I think there's really, like, looking through the list quickly, the whole list of in its entirety. There's one story I think that was quite good, one story that was entertaining, and the rest I don't care about. Which it was a difficult category for me, this one.
Yeah,
I think what I'm saying is basically you'll probably get your way in this one, because I'm just not overly sold on anything in these categories.
Yeah, we didn't necessarily hit up a lot of heavy story games this last year. Kind of looking at games that weren't even brought into this, you've got things like, Doom, Gears, Halo, Left 4 Dead. Like, they're all just pretty standard, if not nothing. Limbo. There's not really. I mean, that's an atmosphere kind of thing.
Yep.
Sea of Solitude, terrible. Rogue Legacy, nothing. Sonic, nothing. Streets of Rage, nothing. Mario games, nothing. The Medium, that was all right.
That was all right, actually. And maybe if I'd thought a bit harder, I think my standout memory of the Medium, the ending was dumb, and my standout memory of that game, when I think, because we've obviously had some time divorced from it, when someone says
one of the first ones we did,
I just think of that annoying monster that was just like going about moaning in those stealth sections. It just wasn't, to me, it wasn't clear what you had to do to get through them, and it was just the story isn't something that stuck with me, and I think that's kind of where I came down on it. I was like, well, if it's not stuck with me when we played it within a year ago,
exactly,
that good,
because some of these games have obviously stuck with us, which is why we replayed them. Games like BioShock, which, considering you didn't put that in your list at all, I guess that has had less of an effect on you. So this second time around,
I came away from this thinking that it was starting to sort of show its age and creak at the seams a little bit, and I think the sort of narrative delivery through audio logs, for the most part, I think feels quite quaint and out of date now, and that's why I left it off the list. But I'd be interested to see what compels you about it, because you obviously did like it. It's your best story of the year.
Yeah, I think again with it's hard to. Sometimes it is hard to keep world building and story mutually exclusive and not give yourself some sort of bias because you really like the setup of Rapture and the ideals behind setting up that underwater city in the first place. But in terms of like bits of story or moments in a story that have stood out to me through any of the games we've played here, probably also ever as well, are the things like right at the beginning in the bathysphere with the "I'm Andrew Ryan" and the "Would you kindly," where he's hitting him with the golf club. The twist, which was pretty cool back in the day. I'd say the twist was less affecting, obviously, this time because I've seen it before. But the golf club bit, I still really think held itself up in terms of it just being quite a harrowing thing to watch your character do without you having any control over it. And that's what the game's trying to make a point about, that you just do what you're blindly told to in any game that you play.
Yeah.
But like I say, a lot of it is still going to come back down to like the music choices, the visuals, the setting, and the fact that it's like the purest form of these games, where it started to get a bit up its own arse, especially by the time Infinite came out and the ending there, that I do not think has. It certainly doesn't. Hold up is not the right phrase, but it certainly is less impressive to sort of see them get really meta in BioShock Infinite than it was to just see this game keep itself within its own narrative spectrum and just say, look at this weird twist. Look at how we're kind of making a bit of a commentary on gameplay and player what's the word?
Agency?
That's the one. Player agency, yeah. Exactly. But considering you didn't include it at all, and we have got multiple games in here that we do agree on, doesn't seem like it's going to win. I'm surprised I didn't put Portal 2 in here either. I don't know what I was playing at there.
Well, that's true. This story in Portal 2's fun, I guess. I find so. I guess my takeaway, and it's funny having come back to a lot of the games in this list that I've played before and coming back to them with a fresh or like a more modern eye on it, that I've found interesting is that, like, I remember coming away from playing Portal 2 the first time around thinking this is like a standard comedy narrative in video games. When I played Portal 2 again, I found Steve Merchant quite annoying in a way that I didn't the time before that, and it's really difficult to discuss. I think like there's a few podcasts I listen to that will from time to time drip into like comedy discussions, and I think it is so easy to sort of fall into a hole where you're sort of looking down your nose, sneering and talking about comedy like it's this sort of like high art form, like you're some hipster that's eating your dinner off a slate. Like, so I'm trying to keep it like. So like I'm trying to. It's so subjective. I'm tying myself.
I saw this thing with like a round table of comedians on a channel once, and it had like Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld, and it was very much to that extent.
Yeah, and I that kills comedy for me. As soon as I hear people talking about comedy in that way, I lose interest in it. Like,
yeah,
but because of that, and this is, I guess, where I'm trying to like loop it around and close the thought off, is like comedy is so subjective.
Of course,
I just find it interesting that I bounced off Steve Merchant so hard when, in general, over the years, especially when we were at uni doing this podcast the first time around, like I absolutely loved Ricky Gervais and Steve Merchant, and
and this game, I thought I would have given this a 10 probably back in the day.
Absolutely, and I just think for me the reason it I think maybe the reason it didn't make it on this list is I think just my tastes have changed slightly in a way that I found this game. His delivery a bit annoying, I guess. He reminds me of Vital Spark in a way as well that I find quite irritating. The orb things from Halo. I mean, they look the same and they're oddly sort of bumblingly comedic as well in a way. Yeah, I don't know. That's just my
There-
2 cents on that.
There's a very distinctive set of styles in that game. So you've got like Steve Merchant is kind of like bumbling, slightly maniacal, and then you've got GLaDOS, who is like passive aggressive constantly, and then you've got Cave Johnson, who is like arrogant and
I forgot about
pompous.
him. Yeah.
And then the three of those characters repeat those styles of humor every time they open their mouth.
Yeah, there's not really much development.
No.
And not, well, I guess technically there is, but I don't feel it. Yeah.
So it can become a bit one note, even though that note is, for games, is a good one.
Yeah.
It's not Monkey Island, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And we'll all move on, because you fight like a cow.
So
I will. I guess we'll leave BioShock for a.
I actually meant to
two
ask
more
you,
games now that we've
I meant
both
to
put
ask
down.
you before this podcast started. If we've got to pick a winner, are we also going to have 2 sort of notable mentions? Because I think
let's do that.
That'll, even if we don't get a game that we want to win, it allows us to give our sort of games a sort of time in the sun.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that. I forgot that we've done that before, but yeah.
So
I forgot we completely stole the entire format of the Giant Bomb Game of the Year awards. But you're right. Yes. Right. Let's.
So I think it's because it's number
Resi?
1. Yeah.
Okay. Go on then.
This is Resi. Like this is again like it ain't winning no Oscars. This is not like storytelling is best. It's what's the movie that people always talk to? Is it Citizen Kane that is like genre defining?
Did you get forced to watch that at uni, or was
No,
that just my media
Never seen
studies
it.
course?
Yeah, it must just be. You must have.
Jack made us watch it. Fuck me.
Oh, is
Boring. So boring. I don't care if that makes me sound like a Neanderthal. I don't care. It's really boring.
It's that one. Shawshank Redemption is the
I
other
love
one that
that.
people always talk about. I think I watched that one at uni, and Gone with the Wind. I think is the other one that always jumps that you always hear about.
You didn't watch that at uni, did you?
No, I've never seen that in my life.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, no, me neither. I think Resident Evil 7's story really falls off a cliff
You'll be able to help me
halfway
with this.
through.
Is this anime? Because is it like because anime is something that I've always say I say it quite often in this podcast. I'm so interested in it. I've never found one that I can truly get into. Is this anime?
I would say probably not. No. I'd say it's perhaps like it's definitely like a very outside attempt at trying to do like the Southern American horror at the beginning. And it kind of therefore comes off as unintentionally funny a lot of the time. Even though it's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
The gameplay is terrifying. But the story of like the Baker family and all that nonsense is actually kind of really schlocky and Evil Dead sort of stuff, which really speaks to me because I'm a huge fan of Evil Dead, which is probably why I enjoy the story to this. But I only put mine at number 5 and you put it at number 7. But when you get that, once that little girl comes into everything,
2.
I'm not as high on it then. When she's the bit where she's kind of like following you about, or you've got to follow her about, and she's kind of running away, and she's like this. Actually, I'm going to cut a lot of what I just babbled about because it was just a fucking noise. But there is an anime called Elfen Lied, and that is very similar to what the little girl in this can do. She's got like crazy powers.
Are we talking about the girl that like blows stuff like blows smoke in your face and makes you not see her? Is that the one we're talking about? The one that runs about the dolls?
Yes.
Is that the second one? She's got like a doll that she pretends to speak through.
No, that's Village.
Oh, I was thinking of the wrong game this whole time. So what girl are we talking about then? No. In
Resi 7, there's that little girl, and she's like the progenitor for the virus.
I forgot all about her. Yeah, okay. I think that
you have to go track her down as Maya when the game switches, when you're not playing as Ethan for a bit.
And you're right, this game does fall off a cliff because I was like, Village is quite funny. Like it falls off a cliff, but it falls upwards to me. Like
yeah. Are you wanting to change? Because because clearly I think that Seven's got a better story than Village based off of what I've written in here, and I don't know now you've said that if I actually do believe that.
I'm trying to
Yeah,
think.
I do think I prefer it. Yeah, I just think the opening to that game is so strong. The characters of the family are so good. When you're sitting around that table and they're trying to force you to eat all that shit, and you got the little old lady in the wheelchair, and she's actually the big bad at the end of it, and you got that crazy woman with a massive anus full of bees or whatever it was.
Very it feels very Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That first section.
That dinner scene is yeah. So maybe it's a bit too derivative then to take the top beans.
I don't know, because I think like it's a fine line between what copying and paying homage to something, isn't it? Like, I like where the sort of the new style Resident Evil games are going, and that especially like with Village sort of continues the trend, and they're exploring different types of horror, and they sort of now run the gamut of doing all the different types of sort of Western horror that we have. And it's 7, isn't it? That's maybe one. Well, other than when I first started playing that game, you're getting chased around that dinner sequence with the guy. But when you're having to go up into the attic sort of area, and you see the girl's legs because you've got to climb in that sort of secret door.
Yeah,
that was absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, I love that his girlfriend goes absolutely nuts in it as well. All those scenes where she's just like attacking you with an axe.
Yeah,
that's pretty hilarious. And that dinner scene where, isn't it, Lucas like is trying to give you some shit, so his dad just cuts his arm off, and he's like, "Dad, not again."
Yeah. No, I think it maybe survives the first pass, because if we look at that in terms of like coming back around to games, we've got Max Payne, Resident Evil 7, Alien Isolation, which we've not actually covered yet, have we? And BioShock.
Yeah.
So we've got to get 3 from 4 and then pick a winner from that.
Yeah, I'm just going to cross them out and then leave. So there's the 4 there.
Okay. Do we have... Yeah.
So we need to talk about Alien Isolation, because you put that as number 1. So I think you should start explaining yourself.
This is such an odd game, because I think like it's possibly one of my most hated games of the last decade. But I think like one of the things that this game does well is I think it tells a good alien story.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, again,
it didn't seem to be as derivative as I would have thought it was going to be.
No.
Even though it is visually, but I thought the story it told was one of its own.
Yeah. Did you ever, how far did you, maybe you didn't do the same as me, but right after we did this, I watched all the Alien movies.
Yeah, I only watched the first one.
And it feels like again, like I ended up coming away from this thinking, what is a true Alien movie? Because they're all so different. Like the first one's a bit of a sort of haunted mansion suspense horror movie.
Yeah.
And then they get they turn like steadily more into action movies until like Alien 4 is just utterly ridiculous. I need to watch them. 5 and 6 sort of wind it back a bit and just become action movies. So like when I'm thinking about like what is an Alien movie, they're all so different. I have absolutely no idea what an Alien movie is, but to me this feels more akin to what people would describe when they say it feels like a true Alien movie, in that it is scary, and like that Alien, even though I hated it and found it deeply frustrating, every time that thing came along I was just filled with dread. So like it does feel to me like almost a spiritual sequel to the first Alien. It
definitely is, yeah.
And yeah,
do you think it ties the first two films together? Did you notice that it felt that it had done that, or does it just feel like a side story in between?
It feels like a spin-off side story to me, that can almost be taken as its own thing, but it does enough to sort of nod to the things along the way in the franchise. Like when you go and you remember the bit when you zoom back in time and you're following this guy's camera as he's going through one of the alien ships. Yeah. And I just think
that was the most derivative bit, though, wasn't it? Because that's exactly what happens in the first film.
Yeah. And it even does the thing that all the Alien movies do at the end, in which you think you've beaten the alien, and then all of a sudden it's back again.
Yeah.
I just think that was the thing this game did the best. It is as deeply frustrating as I found it. I thought it understood and appreciated what it was and what it was sort of building off of, like the world of the Alien. Like, I think walking around, I know this isn't quite storytelling, but I guess environmental storytelling is a thing that should be considered.
Yeah.
It is clear that the people that made this game maybe didn't make a great game in my opinion, but what they did make was a game that really, really appreciated and sort of almost revered where it came from. And
yeah, absolutely.
The walking through that ship felt like you were walking through a ship in one of the Alien movies. And to me, that was important, and that still stands out as much as I don't like the game. Again, environmentally, it was perfect, I think, almost.
Yeah. It was compelling to get through.
Mm-hmm.
It had to have been, and we probably would have both just been too frustrated with the Alien to ever touch it again.
Yeah. So that's kind of why it ended up where it was.
She was not a bad protagonist either. She had a bit of a weird voice, but she was pretty likable. We've had some bad protagonists this year, but she was nowhere near one of them.
No, she was absolutely fine.
Because remember Ethan? He just spouts a load of shit all the time.
We've got there's a few games we've played this year where the protagonists are just idiots, like Ethan, and the other one jumping out at me is Days Gone.
That's what I was thinking of when I said that. Yeah,
what an absolute idiot Deacon is.
And the girl from The Medium, she was a bit of a knob as well.
Oh yeah, I forgot about her.
And Sea of Solitude, but we'll get to her later. This is hard because we were sort of far apart every time we agreed, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
We need one more cut, and then we need a top three that we have to sift through.
Do you think Resident Evil 7 goes? Because it is so derivative in a way that, like, and
the second half of it's just not enjoyable.
Yeah. In a way, because I realise what I've just done is we've accused Resident Evil 7 of being derivative and then praised Alien Isolation for...
True, but that was a licensed game, so therefore you expect that to an extent, whereas Resident Evil just was like, what kind of horror should we copy now? And then pick that.
Yeah.
Like, we're done with zombies, now we're going to do Texas Chainsaw the game. Yeah, okay, we'll cut Resi 7.
I'd say that, which leaves us with Bioshock, Max Payne, and Alien Isolation as a top three.
Yeah.
I think, given that, kind of looping back to what I said before, I'll just say this and see if you agree. I would have maybe Bioshock wins because you feel strongly about it. I like Alien Isolation story. I don't feel massively strongly about it, and I think Max Payne's story is quite simple, and I think it's done well to get to the sort of notable mentions.
Okay.
So
we're saying Bioshock, Alien, Max Payne.
Yeah, I would have that.
Okay, let's do it.
Book it in.
Okay, let's move swiftly on to best gameplay. Take us through the nominees again. Yep.
So nominated in this category, we have Gears of War Ultimate Edition, Death's Door, Resident Evil Village, Halo Infinite, Super Mario Galaxy, Doom 64, Portal 2, and Super Mario World.
So that's why you put Doom 64 in it.
Other than that last boss, I think that game holds up incredibly well. The problem is...
Agreed.
The problem is that I played Doom 64. Does it matter? Like, you'll know the answer to this. Like, how do we need to consider the fact that the N64 controller exists and it
I played
was
it
on
with
that? Did you on this release?
Wait, no, I didn't.
I played mine on my
Xbox.
Xbox.
It on Xbox. Yeah, me too.
And I'm not sure how well it would feel on that with that controller, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think it would do the old GoldenEye C button strafing.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially.
Which it may well do. I
don't think you're not doing a lot of aiming and looking up and down because it was all auto aim, wasn't it? So I don't think that would have hampered it too much. I probably could have managed it.
I've always sort of had a tertiary appreciation for the Doom games, but it wasn't until, and there's a running theme throughout a lot of these games in this list in which I'd sort of either ignored or not paid much attention to and then come back to at a later date. But having been made to play this game, it made me realise how much I absolutely love the Doom games. I went back and played Doom 1 and 2. Oh, look at that, baby. Doom 64 on cart.
Still in the wrapper. I haven't even opened it. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I absolutely adore the Doom games, and I just think for their time, it is unbelievable how well these games hold up in a world in which we have thousands of games, a lot of games coming out every year, and 99% of them don't hold up as well as Doom and Doom 64 and Doom 2, maybe not Doom 3, but
yeah, maybe not.
I just think it's unbelievable. It's the same with Super Mario World. These games are better than most games that come out based on their gameplay loop.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Mario, like I said to you,
so well.
I think I said it all the time. Mario World is as close to a perfect video game as you can ever get.
Mm-hmm.
Other than Tetris, which you totally fucking gazumped me with last time. I just can't argue against Tetris being the perfect game. Yeah, you're absolutely right, though. Considering Doom 64 is a game that you and I played for the first time this year, being big fans of Doom, and maybe even came away from it thinking it was almost better than those two.
I think certainly, yeah. I think if you were to hold a gun to my head, which is the best game, I think I'd still plot for Doom, but I think
definitely Doom 1.
Doom 64 is aged way better than 1 and 2, and not way.
Yeah,
better,
which is madness because considering this was seen as it was Midway that made it, and it was on a different. It was
Randy Pitchford. I think had something to do with this game.
Oh God!
I don't know if that makes
That's
it worse.
upsetting.
Yeah. Or is it Randy? I'm going to have to look that up and qualify that.
All right, you do that.
I know he did the port for Half-Life, but then that's nothing to do with this game.
Oh, right, okay. But yeah, I mean, it was on a Nintendo console. It wasn't actual Doom. So this might be the only Doom game in that entire period from 93 to, I don't remember when this came out, 98 or 97. You got a 4-year span of every time a Doom game is on any new platform, it's Doom or Doom 2. But this wasn't. It was its own thing. And it's nuts to think that the N64 got its own version of Doom when everybody else had just been porting it. It was on the PlayStation, it was on the SNES, it was on the Mega Drive or the Mega CD or 32X or whatever the fuck. It was on the Saturn, it was on the PC. And then all of a sudden you get Doom 64 and it's not the original Doom, just ported over.
Yeah.
And arguably feels better to play.
I can't find
Albeit, if you play the original, apparently it's the darkest game ever. So again, we were very lucky that we played the Xbox version.
Yeah.
Because I think I remember when Angry Video Game Nerd covered this game, he said he had to turn the contrast on his TV all the way, or the brightness on his TV all the way up, and he still could barely ever see where he was going.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right, I'm gonna just keep that ready because you've made a very compelling point. We've probably already talked Mario World. We just kind of said it anyway. It's basically perfection. It's platforming at its absolute peak. So we'll keep that bolded as well.
That has possibly never been done better since.
Before not even by them.
No. I want to. So, in an effort to sort of kick this on, I want to. This is one. So, my top two were slapped in. So my top two in this are Super Mario World and Doom 64. They were in. Absolutely in there. Death's Door is another one that was in there for me, and Gears of War Ultimate Edition was another one that I kind of wanted in, but it came and went. Another one that came and went on this list while I was sort of doing it and redoing it was Super Mario Galaxy. And I'd actually, when we're talking about gameplay perfection and things not being done better, that I'd like to offer that up to being cut, because I remember we had fairly extensive discussions about the camera in this game not working very well, which is a gameplay feature. So I think it has to go. Moving around in that world is fun, and it's an absolute dream when it works. But the camera angle being annoying, and when you're going around those spherical sort of orb things, and then you would be running, and then you would just change direction, even though you hadn't changed direction on the stick. I think that has to knock it out of a top 5. It has to. Yeah.
That game has a lot of highlights in it. Potentially as well for 90% of it, the game's quite easy.
Yep.
And I think I would still probably hang my hat on the notion that I prefer the second one.
Yeah.
And I don't want two Mario games in the top 3. And it's
No.
not better than Mario World, so...
No, it's not. And I actually want to say, I don't know if this is controversial or not. I think if you take the series as a whole, I think it's maybe got the worst selection of suits that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. I can't think of many suits that I really liked in that were like not the
I didn't mind the
ones.
ice one.
The ice
I
one
don't
okay.
care. I don't care for the B one.
The B was awful. The B is
You
awful.
hated the spring one as well.
The spring one can get bent. Yeah, the spring one can absolutely do one.
Spring one can get curled, coiled.
Yeah, so let's get Mario Galaxy out there.
Did we only have one game other than Mario World that we agree on, and that's Death's Door, right?
Yeah,
which is weird because we both put it right near the bottom, but usually we always give extra points to bump it up to a game that we've both included in
I think
our
it's
own
because
personal
there's some absolute stormers in this list. I think this is like one of the most difficult categories. Like looking at our different stuff we've got, to me this is one of the most difficult categories because there are so many games that play well. I mean, like games that didn't even make it onto this list that are now like Final Station. It plays well.
Yeah.
What else have we got? Halo.
Streets of Rage, absolute classic.
Halo Infinite. Yeah, Streets of Rage. Rogue Legacy is another game that plays well for what it does. There's lots of games on this list that I think play well.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah. I mean, even that, it does what it sets out to do.
Yeah, I mean, Max Payne was pretty influential for things like Bullet Time.
Mm-hmm.
We even said that Days Gone's gameplay is the only reason we carried on.
Yeah.
Because the loop was just great and we really enjoyed it.
Controversially, like Parasite Eve maybe isn't the best playing game, but gameplay wise it is doing things that are interesting and engaging. Like that fighting mechanic's fantastic, and I don't know why they didn't do it more in that type of game.
It was like Chrono Trigger, but a survival horror game, and because of that it really, really worked in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better than any of the old Resident Evil games. I think we said that at the time, didn't we? Like, it's better than all the tanky control bullshit of that.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's from that era, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a PlayStation game.
Tell me why the gameplay is good in Resident Evil Village, because I think that's maybe one of the worst bits of it.
Really? Those guys just know how to do a third-person shooting mechanic, I think. I don't necessarily... Oh, it was first person, wasn't it? What am I on about?
So, like, yeah, I'll qualify that. It's not terrible. I just felt like a lot of the guns didn't hold much weight to them when you're firing them. They didn't feel hefty and powerful. And the section where I think it's funny, the section on the ship, no, this is Village, the section where you're Chris Redfield running through shooting all the things, like
Call of Redfield.
That bit is basically a first person shooter. So like, what is best in class for that? Apex, Call of Duty, it's nowhere near as good as those.
No.
And maybe it's unfair to compare them to it. It probably is unfair because it's a different engine. It's shooting for different things, but in that moment, in that area, it's trying to be a first-person shooter, and it's just not very good.
Yeah,
it's funny.
I did forget about that when I added that in there. And the puzzles are a bit weak. I just felt like it gave itself this stamp of being like a modern Resident Evil 4, and I felt that it nailed what it set out to do, and also had a bit more of that terror involved with it, with the the big giant vampire woman chasing you about. Puzzle wise, I think it was quite weak for a Resident Evil game, so on that I would definitely be happy at that. And the Red Field of Duty, I would happily cut it,
okay,
because I'm going to bring it up again later anyway, probably multiple times.
Unfortunately I because it's number 5 on my list and it's not on your list at all.
I've been looking at this and thinking maybe I should have put it on there.
So I don't know. I guess I'll give you my argument and you can decide, because, well, we can decide rather. I just think like Gears of War, in terms of sort of that gameplay loop for third person, what's like sort of chest high wall shooter, That was so revolutionary at its time, and it is just like again, like sort of on the Doom 64 note, like or the Doom note or the Super Mario World note, like it's still good and it still is fun to engage with the mechanics. It is simple, and it doesn't really change itself in any way. I guess like what you're doing at the start of the game is ostensibly what you're doing at the end of the game, and there's no sort of like. Mario World will change up the levels and make you do different things. Doom 64, because I'm trying to think on the fly, I'm trying to think, but like Super Mario Galaxy, for example, is a game that always leaves you thinking, and it'll give you like sections of like unique gameplay, and then you'll never see it again.
Yeah.
Gears of War does none of that. The
No.
thing you do in the first level is the thing you're doing all the way through to the end, and it's a testament, I guess, to how fun it is that never gets boring to me. I don't know. I never would have considered myself one, but maybe I'm quite a shooter guy, because like looking back on like my favorite games over this year and games that when we were like behind the scenes discussion, like I was always suggesting shooters.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just what I like, and in terms of shooters, this is one of the best, I think, and it's one of my favorite series. And still is, even though it's now old and long in the tooth. And the games are, what are we now on? Is it 5 we've had now? 5 main line games at least,
plus Judgment.
But it's still as good as ever. But
there's a reason that franchise has probably never really evolved. Because it was so perfect the first time around. Yeah,
so I wonder.
It's just so visceral and meaty and manly.
Chainsawing someone in half is still fun. Absolutely.
Sniping them, amazing sniper rifle.
I wonder, like, so how do you think this compares to Halo Infinite? Because I actually think, if I'm honest, the moment-to-moment gameplay in Halo is probably better than the moment-to-moment in Gears of War Ultimate Edition.
I mean, it's more than 10 years after the fact, so there's that. 15 years after the fact, I think.
But I think both of us would agree, and this is the thing that I can't quite, because I could go either way on this, I'm interested in your opinion, is both of us talked about how by the end of Halo we were getting a bit bored of it. But we weren't bored by the shooting mechanics. I
certainly wasn't bored by the gameplay. I was bored by the variety of...
the lack of variety in the setting and the way in which the game wants you to move around.
Yeah.
And I guess that's
but in terms of me...
Is that gameplay?
Yeah, I guess it is.
Like what makes Red to me...
level design, I guess. But... that grappling hook plus the classic Halo shooting style, which is they've basically honed now to a T.
Yeah.
I think there are very few first-person shooters that feel as good to play as that did, other than maybe Apex. I can't think of anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Overwatch, maybe. But like, I would never want to play a Call of Duty or Battlefield game instead of Halo.
Mm-hmm.
That Halo, anyway. But I don't know. I mean, it was basically just Halo for like the 8th time, but with a grappling hook this time in a big open world. And the open world does have to be included in the gameplay, and the loop and the map box ticking exercise and all that stuff kind of needs to be factored in.
I'm trying to think of like trying to narrow this list down. Like I don't know if it obviously doesn't win, but I'm quite keen to try and get Death's Door at least beyond this next run. Like I just think what it does is so tight and fun, and like the boss fights are challenging, but I was never angry at them. Moving around the world and just sort of engaging with that fighting mechanics and the variety for such a simple, straightforward-ish game, the variety that you can employ in terms of play style. I think we even encountered it when we were watching each other play. We just played very differently, whether you were like... And the variety in bosses as well. I like towards the end, I was thinking, when you've essentially got to go and refight all the bosses again. Like there was that the massive crow that you had to fight was just unlike anything else that you'd encountered in the game. So at least on to the next round, I would like to get it, which means
I kind of feel like it should maybe stay in the top 3, because if we're talking about, I mean, okay, you can talk about its originality in the terms of, well, it's kind of like an isometric Souls-like Metroidvania kind of thing, but at the same time, we've got a third-person shooter, which was the first in the franchise, but in a franchise that's never really changed. You've got like the 8th Halo game, you've got the 8th Resident Evil game, you've got like a Doom sequel, you've got a Mario sequel. So, you know, I feel like for originality purposes, it should probably stick around, because we both also really liked it. And from 2021, that's probably the best gameplay from this year.
Yeah.
Like from this actual year.
Yep. I think like looking at of the games, I always kept coming back to it, and I kept tripping myself up when we were going like through games we played this year of 2020 games that were released in 2021. It's definitely top 3, perhaps top. I would need to think about it a bit more, I think. But yeah, it's definitely up there. I absolutely loved.
Doesn't outstay its welcome either.
No.
And it was, I think the only thing that it probably didn't completely nail was like the character upgrades that seemed a bit arbitrary.
I think. Does this mean we need? Oh, they were funny as well. That pothead was pretty good.
Oh yeah. I think we have to have it in everywhere.
Here. In the witch, like even like fighting the witch was fun.
Yeah, it was really good.
It had the variety, and if we're talking about like Halo and stuff, because I think the environmental design, every place you went to was so different.
Yeah.
I think
and a grappling hook as well, didn't it?
Yeah. I think as much as I love it, just by default, then Gears has probably got to go.
Okay.
It just has to, because to me it just doesn't.
I'm going to cut Halo as well then. Okay,
so one game we haven't really spoken about Super Mario World, but we've not touched on Portal 2. Do you want to give us this is sitting at number 2 on your list. Do you want to give us the thinking behind this?
I think as a sequel, in terms of sequels of games that I can think off the top of my head, I don't think I've ever really played one that expanded on its original. Granted, the original was like a throwaway thing that some dudes did on a lunch break or whatever. So they actually just kind of fleshed it out. But I think everything they added to Portal 2 that wasn't in Portal 1 was fantastic. Like the gels that you were bouncing on, the anti-grav stuff, all the stuff that they added I thought was fantastic. And it's a game that ramps up its difficulty as you get in really innovative ways that never ever feel like it's repeating itself, and the game obviously makes you feel really clever. There's nothing really else like it. I was actually quite surprised that you didn't put this in here for yourself. I know that it's obviously not hit the same heights for you as it did the first time around, but I've definitely felt, other than the fact that it's kind of a bit slow and it's 30 FPS, from at its core, this game is still so unlike anything else and so satisfying when you get things right.
Yeah.
That that's why it was my personal number 2, because I still absolutely love to play it.
I found, and it probably says more about me than the game, but because it's like the second time we had played through it, I still got lost in that game. Once you leave the sort of sterile test chamber area, it gives the game more character, and I think it's better for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, and I found sometimes just moving around, I would get lost and I wasn't quite sure where to go. But in a way, maybe I'm talking myself round, because it did mean that when you figured out where to go, it sometimes felt like you were getting one over the game, which obviously you weren't.
Yeah, it did a lot of like, you're out the back of all the test chambers, aren't you? Like, especially in the chase sequences or whatever with Wheatley. I just think that when you find that 70s style, older version of the Aperture Labs, the amount of new stuff it throws at you after so many hours of just going through the same thing is so good. And then when Wheatley starts trying to make the chambers at the end to try and get one over you, but they're always like kind of broken or don't really work.
So do you think in terms of based on pure variety, I guess because we're both agreed that this game does what it sets out to do excellently well and the puzzles work and handle well, and if you don't manage to do a puzzle you never feel like the controls are letting you down, which obviously is vitally important for a category like this. Do you think in terms of pure variety it beats Doom 64 then, because Doom 64 is so one note?
Yeah.
I think I can see that argument. Which gives us our final three then, I think, if I'm looking at this list correctly. Oh no, we haven't. We've got to speak about Super Mario World, don't we?
What do we need to say?
It's just the perfect platformer. Like, there's no better platformer. Oodles of variety. And for a game of that age, like, I had to look up a guide at one moment because I actually had never quite grasped the importance of the keys that you can, the secret keys and stuff. That
I don't think you finished that part of it, did you? The whole Star World stuff.
No, I didn't. So, like, on the face of it, it seems like a linear game where you just go from level to level, but it's not at all. Not at all.
No.
And
all the secret exits and stuff. Yeah.
And it's my favorite. And I think I say it every time we start talking about a Mario game, but my absolute favorite thing about these games is that this one isn't actually true, because there's a bit where you've got to find a secret key or you can't progress. But for the most part in Mario games, if you just want to get through it, you can get through it fairly easily with the odd bit of challenge. But then if you really want to sort of dive in deep and pull this game apart, they're rock solid in places. And this one, this one is the same as that.
Yeah.
And there's a reason
this is
why.
One of the hardest ones, I think. This and Mario 3, I think, are the two hardest.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think you'd be hard pushed if like if you're having a discussion about someone about what is the best game ever made. If this was their favorite game ever, you might disagree with them, but you couldn't really say you're talking rubbish.
No, exactly. It should be in somewhere in everybody's like top 10, I think.
I think it's probably no surprise that both Alex and I had this as our number one game, so I think it wins by default.
Yeah, I think so too. And then I'm happy to have Portal 2 as number 3, because we both agreed on the other one as well.
Yeah, Death's Door and Portal 2. So the winner of Best Gameplay of 2021, and the winner's you, is Super Mario World, with runners-up Death's Door and Portal 2. Right. Let's do this, Alex. Let's get this Band-Aid ripped straight off. This is now time for Most Bullshit Award. The nominees for Most Bullshit is Deacon and Sarah's relationship, The Blood Trail, The Alien, Deacon the Dum Dum, The Attitude of the Girl in Sea of Solitude, The Gauntlet of Twat at the end of Parasite Eve, and the final boss in Doom 64. We agree on quite a lot of these, actually, which is quite funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I think we need to just sort of can we sort of marry Deacon the Dum Dum and Deacon and Sarah's relationship into one big Deacon?
But I'm also kind of blaming Sarah for that too. Okay, she was a real dick to him when he first met.
She was actually. That's a good point. She was a total dick.
Yeah, I mean, she claimed she couldn't do anything about it, but they could quite easily have left. And let's not forget, she was not sort of acting like Deacon was her husband because she was blindly following a maniacal dictator who ended up being really evil and shitty.
Were you waiting that entire game for it to turn out that she had been shagging someone else?
Yeah, absolutely.
And she was in a different relationship. I'd be like, oh, she had a different husband or a different boyfriend. I was just waiting for that.
Yeah, I think the payoff to finding her was awful. Yeah, considering you've spent all this time having to sit through. Well, I didn't sit through it; I skipped through. But the bits where he goes to her grave, and he's always going on about her, and Boozer's always kind of understanding of how much he misses her and whatnot. Oh, let's not forget about when Boozer goes mental as well and gets just drunk and
when
suicidal.
He gets drunk, it's obviously it is. It's like some kid that has never been drunk before had wrote that section,
and then when you meet up with him, he's totally fine.
Yeah, no one's ever like that. Again. Like I can be absolutely drunk, but if something happens that you've got to sober up for, you can fucking sober up. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, yeah, so I'm coming at this from the angle of I feel like their relationship is bullshit.
Yeah.
But you seem to have not been happy with the mountain of bullshit coming from Deacon.
Yeah, I think now that you've spoken about it, it is bullshit, but in a way that I was entertained and found it funny. And if I find it funny and was entertained by it, maybe it doesn't make this list. But basically, what I'm getting at is like Deacon was just thick as mince. And
he also likes shouting at anybody who spoke to him he's just constantly shouting at everyone.
So it was the things that jumped out at me is like when he'd go and see that guy in the helicopter, or things would happen and you would be given like major story nuggets, and he would be like finding out that basically the world was about to end and there was nothing he could do about it, and rather than being like, oh no, what have I just heard? He'd just get wound up and totally sidetracked about something else that was just unconnected to like what he was doing. Like you'd be following those scientists about and hear genuinely useful information that he should be like rocked to his core about in some instances, and he just like sort of bounces off as if
he would just be like, oh, they're evolving, perfect, great,
so like that's a bit
wanker.
That was funny, but it was.
It was funny,
really bad. So yeah, I think Deacon the Dum Dum goes.
Absolute knobber. Both of those things go. Let's get rid of them.
Oh, you're getting rid of Sarah?
Yeah. There's worse. There's way worse. Their relationship was bullshit, but I didn't get personally angry like I have done with a lot of this other stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So like talking about personally angry, I feel like you're number 3. The attitude of the girl in Sea of Solitude has to be discussed.
Yeah, she wound me up so much. And to be honest, I've kind of blanked a lot of it out of my mind now, but I just remember there was that one bit where she's trying to talk to her parents. Do you remember that bit?
Yeah.
And do you remember also the bit where that guy... Did her boyfriend kill himself or something? Is that right?
Oh, yeah, should have...
She was just a dick to him constantly.
Yeah. That might
she was
be
like she was the problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was shitty to her little brother as well, right? She just ignored the fact that her little brother was getting bullied at school.
Oh, that's right.
The whole game is basically just her finding out how shit she's been to everybody in her life and how she's basically ruined everyone else's time while she's currently wallowing in her own self-fucking pity.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's she's just been completely neglectful to everything else in our world.
Yeah, I can kind of relate to that. If you're in your own head, then you're in your own head. If you're in your own world and you're ignoring everybody else's issues, then your problems are always going to feel like most to you. But maybe I just don't want to be reminded of being like that by a video game.
Well, I
can relate too much.
Maybe there's an element of that. My beef with the game was more that I felt like it was the most bog standard, on the nose mental health story they could have told. Yeah. And there's ways that are interested and engaging to tell mental health stories, but this is the one that has been done 8 million times before, and it did nothing new, had nothing new to say, it offered nothing new to sort of make you consider and appreciate people with which we both have, mental health issues, in a new way that makes you think differently, or make people that don't have mental health issues maybe understand it better. It is just everything it did has been done before, and we've heard it before, and it is just rubbish. It
also did it through a deeply personal prism that we're supposed to then understand. Do you remember the bit where she's having a go at her parents and they're like, oh, we've tried everything? When their parents are splitting up, he's like, I've tried everything. Well, you haven't told us any of the things you have tried, so how the hell do I know?
Yeah.
To me, it just seems like you're a bit of an asshole. So, yeah. That was terrible. But again, it was over and done with once it was finished. It didn't it was a moment in a game where we looked at it and was like, that's dumb. But it's not a moment like some of these things that actually physically affected us getting through the game, which is by far a greater sin of bullshit than it is to just make a self-important, depressed girl.
So my number 1 on this list is the Gauntlet of Twat at the end of Parasite Eve, which is funny because
I can't believe you put that as number 1, actually.
I didn't have to live through it, but I know that if I had to live through it, I don't think I would have finished that game. Like the fact that you did that, like when you were like, I was playing it and you were explaining to me what you had to go through, because we've both had this experience to a lesser extent, because you played was it the Xbox version of Max Payne, and I played the PlayStation version, and you could quick save, whereas I couldn't.
Yep.
That was the exact problem that we had in Parasite Eve, and that I thankfully managed to dodge the bullet of my life, because that final section in Parasite Eve is maybe, oh, what a stain on that game. I'm surprised that you can still have a conversation about that game in any sort of positive light, because I think that would have just broken me.
I think that kind of speaks to how much I was enjoying playing it, because it was so different to anything else we'd played, that I was willing to sit through that end of that game over and over and over again, banging my head against it. Whereas my number one, which is the final boss in Doom 64, I mean, you gave up on it.
I gave up on Doom 64, uninstalled
and the fact that you managed to get to the final boss, give up on the final boss, uninstall it, reinstall it, and then beat the boss before I did, and all the while I'm still playing the final boss while you're doing all of these things, is why, for me, that is the most bullshit, because it was just fucking horrible. It's so fast. It fires all that shit at you so fast.
Yeah, and I'm glad I never have to do that again.
I never will ever do that again.
Because it was just brutally difficult. Out of nowhere as well. Like the difficulty spike between
I completely agree.
The rest of the game and then this bit. It was just absolutely unreal. It just came from nowhere. It's awful. It is truly an awful, awful finish to a game.
Yeah, I mean, Parasite Eve will game over you in that final bit where you've done 3 stages of a very tough boss, having already done a really tough boss before that. Yeah. And then if it touches you, it's game over and you've got to start all over again. That's bullshit. But Doom actually made one of us quit. And if you hadn't have gone back and done it yourself, I would have also quit and just been like, well, we don't need to finish it. We've got to the end. That'll do.
We can talk.
We'll just do the podcast and say we couldn't beat it. Fair enough. But the fact that I had then I was so compelled that I have to do this because you've unrage quit and come back and beaten it before me. I had to do it. So yeah, what's the other? Oh, the alien. Go on, talk about the alien.
Well, I was about to say, I can't believe this sentence is about to come out of my mouth, but does the blood trail not make the list? I don't think it does.
Well, the alien was kind of relentless and annoying, and instant deaths are shitty, but that to an extent is a compliment on the design of the aliens AI, whereas just putting some lines of red that are really fucking hard to walk over because the platforming sucks is not good design, and therefore is technically more bullshit than the alien, because the alien's actually really cleverly done.
So this
didn't
is
enjoy
the thing
it at all.
No, I didn't. This is the problem I've got with the game, in that, like, if I'm totally honest, like the alien filled me with such fear and dread that I didn't want it to come, because I was so scared of it. Because and to the point that it actually got in the way of me being able to enjoy the game. So
you don't want to turn it on knowing you're going to have to go through that again.
No, and it's the thing that for me that the Resident Evil games do so well. Like, I found parts of the Resident Evil games as unsettling and difficult to engage with. Like, I wanted, like, while I'm playing with that section and getting chased about by Lady Dimitrescu, or that start section of the game where you're getting chased and you have to find the key to the hatch that will let you underneath the floor in Resident Evil 7, while that guy's chasing you. Like, those did the same thing to me as the alien does. The thing is they're short-lived and you get some reprieve. Yeah. And also the games get progressively more silly as it goes on. This game did neither. And it's a design choice.
It gives you the power fantasy by the end, doesn't it?
This game doesn't even with the flamethrower, it doesn't give you enough.
No.
And it's just like, if I wasn't playing and chatting to you at that time where you've got to go through the alien nests, I don't know how I would have got myself through it.
I did forget about the fact that it then adds like fucking 10 of them in it, just all over the place, all at once, and your little monitor thing, what was that? The little radar thing just goes nuts. It's completely useless at that point because there's about 20 dots everywhere.
So, yeah, I'm happy to admit that, like, I just found the alien so unsettling, I find it difficult to play. I can't decide whether that's a negative for me. I can't decide if that's a negative for the game, and maybe it's just not my type of game. Like if there's a really good horror movie and people don't want to watch the movie because they don't like horror movies, that's not a negative on the movie to me. I don't know.
I think there's a point where I'd gone for a very long time in this without being able to save it, and I remember thinking, like, if this game fucks me over and I have to do all of that again. You had to do that as well, I think.
Well, there
were a lot of times where the checkpointing was bullshit.
You've actually reminded me, and that, like, I think we spoke about this in the pod, and if we didn't, I hope we should have. Like, the way this game ratchets up tension and creates dread from the alien is not fun. So it does it because it's like, I don't want to get caught by this alien because I'm going to lose progress, and I can't be bothered doing this section again. I can't be bothered creeping through these corridors really slowly. And some of the insta-death sections, like, I hate insta-death. I just don't.
I can't stand it.
And so maybe I'm coming back around to myself in that, like, the way, and to repeat myself, the way in which this game creates tension, I think, is bullshit.
Yeah, I think it has to win out over Max Payne's Blood Trails, because I think
with
a quick save, they're doable in a few minutes.
They're doable in a few minutes, and actually, it wasn't the Blood Trail that I found annoying or the most annoying thing in that game. It was actually the sort of maze house sections before the Blood Trail I found more frustrating, because there was one of them I just got lost in, and I couldn't even look up a guide because I was so deep in, I didn't know where I was, so I just had to run around until I found my way out.
Yeah. And if we do it from a statistical point of view, the Blood Trails is probably about 3% of Max Payne, whereas the Alien is about 93% of that game.
Do you know what though? Like,
it spoils the brilliant set design and world building of that game, because you can't even enjoy being in it.
Yep. And it's not even like to say, like, I can't play horror games. I do like horror games. Another, like, one of my favourite games, certainly of the 360 era, is the Dead Space 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Not 3, but 1 and 2. It's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
I do like Resident Evil games. You love Resident Evil games, and I know, like, maybe we've just explained why we find them better, but, like,
Silent Hill 2 is pretty tense as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. So it's not like I don't like horror games. It's just this one
I like to have a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Just a chance, and this game feels like a lot of the time it just doesn't give you one.
I think we do cross off the Blood Trail. I actually think I would, if I was redoing this now, I would rather extrapolate that out and be less about the Blood Trail and just the
nightmare sequences.
The precision sort of platforming that this game has to do with tanky ass crappy controls.
Yeah, good point.
But yeah, so I think, is that us got, how many have we got? Have we got 3
now? We've got our 3 now.
So
we
the
just need
final
to order them.
boss in Doom 64, the Gauntlet of Twat, and the Alien.
It has to be the Doom 64 boss.
I can't see,
because to me that just felt like let's give the end boss loads and loads of, like, OP attacks and shit fucking loads of health. Off you go, deal with that. But then the end of Parasite Eve is also ridiculous. Utterly ridiculous. The fact that it fucking gives you a save point that if you use it, you lose and it's game over. It's a fake save point.
Yeah.
But previously did work as a save point. Is madness.
There's a section in Alien as well that jumps out just to highlight. There's a bit nearer the end of the game where you've got to go to one, like, it's one of these little bumhole hatch things that open and close.
The anuses.
Yeah, you've got to go in one of them, but it doesn't work. So you've got to go, like, right across the level to a generator, which then it gets the alien out, and then right back over the other side, and then I think the generator cuts out, and you've got to go right back again, and then go right. So you're, like, creeping around this massive area where the alien really, and as this game goes on, the alien really starts going for you.
It would come into those anuses sometimes as well.
Yeah, I got caught in an anus more than once.
I still think it has to be third though, because again they wanted it to be like that.
Yeah.
Whereas the other two games are just stupid. They're just bad design.
I just didn't like that game. Yeah. I think that's wrapped up in it. So it's an honourable mention.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's funny that we're both sort of talking about, like, my most bullshit is your biggest bullshit moment, and vice versa.
Yeah.
How long? So like
You felt for me for the end of Parasite Eve though.
it's the length of it as well that's the worst, in that you could get so far and then just have to go all the way back again. And even if you had sort of figured out what to do, there was no guarantee. You're like, right, at least I'll get back here again.
Also, as well, like you could look up a guide on how to do it, and it would work.
Okay, so it was just sort of
like it would. You look up a guide, it will tell you the way to go, or it will tell you how to beat those bosses with the right kind of tactics. But there is no guide that can help you with Doom 64.
No.
That just has to be fucking arduous repetition until you've done it. And it angered us both to such a higher extent than this end of Parasite Eve did.
It was actually quite a breeze for me, to be honest, because I could quick save and I had you to talk me through it, so it just wasn't a problem for me. So maybe on that it's the honourable mention in the Doom 64 boss wins.
Yeah.
So we've got Alien in Alien, and Parasite Eve as our honourable mentions, with Doom 64 as our winner of Most Bullshit Award 2021.
Mm-hmm. So we're probably getting to a stage in the awards at this point where things are gonna get sped up now, because we've done a lot of talking about a lot of stuff that will just come up again.
Bash through it.
Yeah. So the next category is the best surprise. Shall I run us through these ones?
Let's do it.
So the best surprise, which obviously is our game that we were most surprised that we clearly enjoyed or otherwise, and they are Parasite Eve, Doom 64, Death's Door, Resident Evil Village. Incredibly, Sonic the Hedgehog has surprised one of us in this year of our Lord 2021. The Final Station. See, this is harder than it looks.
It is.
Days Gone and Streets of Rage.
Yes.
Right, you were a big fan of Streets of Rage. What surprised you about that?
Because I played it before and I didn't like it.
Oh, okay.
And it wasn't until we played it together. What a
wonderful evening that was.
That was so good. I think Sonic is the same thing with this, in that until I had sort of encountered a fan of the games, I'm not sure I ever really appreciated what they had to offer. You
probably would never have touched them.
I mean, I did play. Yeah.
Like again,
you're totally right.
And being compelled to pick up a Sonic game.
Because if you'd asked, like, Streets of Rage, if you'd asked me prior to playing this game, do you like Streets of Rage 2? I would have said yes, absolutely, and it's probably it would have been my favourite sort of beat 'em up. But I had no interest in playing it because it was such a old school ass beat 'em up game in which it'll just like I couldn't get very far, and I always found the bosses really frustrating.
They are,
but sort of playing it with you through that evening, it was just a whole reappreciation for the game. And even Streets of Rage 4, which is another one that I had tried to play and bounced off of entirely until we went back to it.
Excellent,
it just gave me an appreciation for these games that I didn't have before. And I guess it's a surprise that I managed to find the capacity in 2021 to enjoy these games.
Or like you sort of had a newfound appreciation for them once again, when you've probably written them off at that point.
Yeah, and Sonic is another one that's made my list as well for the same reasons, to the extent that we spent lots of period of time. Like I went back and played a lot of Sonic games after we were
even playing like GBA games and stuff.
Yeah, it was fantastic and absolutely loved it. And again, just like a game that if you had asked me prior to this game, I would have said I like it and appreciate it for what it was, but I don't think it's aged well. But the thing I used to always say about Sonic is I liked it when it was going fast, but the game constantly took you away from that. And I don't necessarily agree with that anymore. I think it's got a lot more to offer than just running fast.
Yeah, the franchise has sullied the good name of Sonic, I think, to an extent where you probably didn't trust that it was good anymore.
Hilarious. Was it a Dreamcast one you were playing?
That was the Xbox 360 PS3 one. Oh, Sonic 2006. Yeah. Out of these two games, are we going to keep Sonic for now because you had such a good time with it in all its guises, and then ditch off Streets of Rage for for now. Keep Sonic. Is it so
let's
much
do
higher?
that. Yeah, I'd say that.
All right, we'll keep. What?
Sonic survives the first pass.
Right, I'll get Days Gone out of the way. I just expected it to be a bit shit. It was one of them games where I thought I've always wanted to just see if this is actually shit.
Yeah.
Because everyone moans about the bike being a pain in the arse, which I think they had slightly fixed by that point.
Yeah,
or that it was just like a.
Because it was a pain in the ass at the start. Like,
yeah,
your fuel was just constantly running out. But yeah, it was quite fun.
I think they did do something to help make it slightly easier. And the upgrades, some of the upgrades in this game made it a lot more playable. Like when you were able to finally take on a horde for the first time and beat that. Like those moments were great.
And it's great. What I love about that is like Assassin's Creed, the newest one where you're the Viking, does a similar thing in that like most of the world in which you walk around in is really, really easy, but there's these like pockets of difficulty that offer genuine challenge. And it's fun to try and poke at these things and engage with them and figure out how the game wants you to do it. And taking on hordes did become really, really fun. There are some towards the end of the game where you're sort of rounding up the end of them. It just becomes a bit of a formality because they're actually not that big. And they're a bit simple. But yeah, I like this game. I was going into this game expecting not to enjoy it either, because it just seemed interestingly. I was listening to a podcast today, and they were talking about how Ghost of Tsushima is such a huge success for Sony and how everybody loves it, and it sold like over 8 million copies.
It has done really well, yeah.
But then there was a guy that got highlighted on Twitter that if you're to ask a sort of the narrative that surrounds the game, Days Gone is sort of a bit mucky and people don't like it and people sort of think it's been a bit of a flop when actually it's sold over 9 million copies. So
has it really?
Yeah. So like
people still love zombies, it seems.
They do. And I get it. It's not a like for like because Ghost of Tsushima just came out and was good, whereas Days Gone took 7-8 years probably to come out. And then they had to put a hefty marketing campaign behind it to make it a success or to make it get its money back, which I assume it did. We'll probably never, to the point that like obviously they were expecting more from this game than we got because the end of the game sets itself up for a sequel, which it just doesn't. We're obviously never going to get. So, but yeah, that's why it's a surprise because I was same as you. I was expecting because the narrative around this game is that it's a bit shit when actually it's quite fun. It's not the best game ever made, but it's fun for what it is.
And that's why we're going to cut it because it's not the best.
No, and
that's what this category is. Best surprise, but it was a genuinely nice surprise.
Yes,
I did not think this game was terrible.
I encountered some stinking bugs in that game as well.
Yes, you did.
Interior of buildings just non-existent, like vanished. People walking around in fresh air, leaning on furniture that I couldn't see. Yeah, that was stupid.
I think. Should we just both agree that we're going to cut this game from best surprise purely because there would be no missions in the camp until you went out of the camp and then had to come back into the camp to get the mission from the camp you were just in.
Get it out of here. Yeah.
I don't think Final Station stays as best surprise purely because I'd already played it with you and I kind of knew I liked it.
Yeah.
It was just good to see that time had not been cruel to it and that when I actually sat down and played it by myself, I found it probably more engaging and enjoyable than that time you and I were chilling out playing it at your house together. But it's not the best surprise. It's just it would surprise anybody who, if you picked it up off of our podcast, I hope a lot of people would have found that enjoyable.
Yeah.
Even one person, hopefully they found it enjoyable.
Yeah.
That I believe is one of our most watched podcasts on YouTube, actually.
That's a surprise. Yes. What surprised you about Village? Resident Evil Village?
It's just one of those ones where you know how if you were to see a trailer for like Uncharted or Gears 6 or whatever, we've had this thing where we talk about it quite a lot recently where like, what's the point of me watching a trailer for it? Simon's a big proponent of this. Like, what's the point? I'm going to get it. I'm probably going to like it. So I think potentially for Resident Evil Village, I felt that way when I saw the werewolves. I was like, okay, cool. I hope that they don't fuck this up and it's not, totally wacky or whatever, and it's just like Resident Evil 6. But this could be pretty cool. and then for it to just come out and actually be like the modern take on Resi 4, which is one of my favorites, and I found myself really enjoying it more than 7, which again surprised me that I liked, because I thought that was going to suck. I just feel like, yeah, this first person Resident Evil series or trilogy, whatever it's going to end up being, has constantly surprised me that I don't hate it, because it's nothing like. Well, that's not true. It's obviously faithful enough to the Resident Evil games for me to like them on that merit, but as a purist, I hated the thought of 7 until I played that demo, and it hooked me. And with this one, it felt like this was a better game than 7 from start to finish, whereas 7 was probably scarier and had the better setting and the better characters.
It felt more confident to me, Village,
Yes.
than 7. And what I like about it, I think we've spoken about this before, is that it sort of did the gamut of horror. So, like,
It did.
Resident Evil 7 was very much focused on southern, old South, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like, horror games, whereas this did the whole thing, and it went more traditional as well. So it had, like, I don't know, almost like the Transylvanian setting of the first castle, but then it also linked back to the same sort of gameplay loop as the old as Resident Evil 7. And then, like, each house you went to after that was a different type of horror, and that actually surprised me how much I ended up liking. And then even beyond that, like, there's things it did, like the elevator pitch for this story. I'm surprised I like the story as much as I do, and because if you were to give me the elevator pitch, I'd be like, get the fuck out of here. That sounds fucking awful, but it's not.
It's just batshit crazy. Yeah.
And then even like the final boss, if someone was to explain that to me in isolation about this is nuts, she turned into a tank, kind of. And as much as I say I didn't like it, like I've talked about this game, I've talked about games today where I felt that it did one thing very well and then never changed. This game, even if the shooting sections in Village weren't as good as like a Call of Duty and stuff like that, it was still so different to what you've been doing previously, and it's a nice palette cleanser in a way that you never got in Alien. You never got the light relief, whereas this is like super light relief because it's funny and it's just something different, and it's giving you the power fantasy that you look for. I'm actually now regretting it's not on my list, to be honest, because I looked at it and I was like, I liked 7, surely I would have liked 8, but it does.
I think that's probably there is an element to that I think I probably will cut it for that reason, because I'm a massive fan of Resident Evil, so I would probably have ended up liking it always.
I don't know. I don't think this is controversial, but maybe it is because it's my number 2. The more I think about it, I'm not sure I was surprised I liked Death's Door, because as soon as I see
I only played that because you wanted to play it.
Yeah,
you said, have you seen this game?
Yeah, the trailer was like right up my street. Like the art style was right up my street. The gameplay is up my street. Like, yeah, I just don't think I shouldn't have been surprised by that. So get that gone.
Okay. Our 2 old favourites are back again. Doom 64 and Parasite Eve are still lingering around.
What's it? Oh, and Sonic. Is that our 3 then?
Oh yeah,
that was easy.
Yeah, it was. So Sonic has to go number 3. We'll put that in there right now.
Yeah.
And but it's just nice that you can probably count 2D Sonic as something that you enjoy.
I wonder if Parasite Eve wins this, because, like, again, like, if we're talking about elevator pitches like we were with Resident Evil, like, on paper, this should repulse me. Like, it's anime as hell. It's like, really, it's old. Like, it looks like
it is old. It's ugly as fuck.
Yeah,
horrible looking game. But
I liked it despite itself, so I think that's the winner, actually.
Yeah,
because I was always it maybe wouldn't have been my favorite game in the world, and it maybe wouldn't have been the highlight it ended up being. But on paper, I should have liked Doom 64.
Yeah, it's a Doom game, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like it's a Doom game you've never played that they've now remastered, and it's different to.
Yeah.
You know, it's the boomer shooter era, but it's slightly different. Whereas Parasite Eve was one of them games where I thought to myself, like, I really want to see what this is like. Mm-hmm. It's probably going to be shit, but I just want to check it out. And then for it to be, like I said, basically Chrono Trigger, which is one of my favorite games ever, but it's a horror game from the PlayStation era that really works and holds up perfectly today. Because there's, and there's levels of depth to it as well that we didn't really expect. Like the whole sort of mixing your two weapons together,
Yeah.
where you can effectively like lock yourself out of certain weapons for the rest of the game if you don't pay attention to what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I just did not
You end up
expect
fighting a
to like it as
T-Rex
much
in
as I
this
did.
game.
Many dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the winner.
That T-Rex fight is well hard though.
Yeah. So runners up, we've got Doom 64 and Sonic, with the winner of Best Surprise in 2021 being Parasite Eve.
Indeed so. Right. Now we are on to our own personal little shout outs to non-podcast games for the next couple of awards. So there's not really going to be a lot of debate, or any debate, because we're just going to decide a winner each out of our few nominations. We're just going to quickly tell each other about these games that we've played that the other one probably pretty much hasn't, except one. But first of all, we've got the best 2021 non-podcast game.
Yes.
David's nominees.
Yeah, sorry. My nominees: Back for Blood, Ratchet and Clank, Rift Apart, Hitman 3. With your nominees being?
Mine are Metroid Dread, Returnal, and Lost Judgment. We've both played just Returnal and Back for Blood, right? You didn't really get on with Returnal, did you?
No. I think I perhaps need a chaperone for this game.
Maybe.
I wasn't very good at it to start with.
It's hard.
Yeah, I just wasn't getting what I was meant to be doing, and I was dying really early on, so I was just redoing the same sort of area over and over again without really knowing why. Whereas like I do like run-based games, but I felt like I've always known what I was doing, whereas I didn't know why I was doing this. I guess is what I fell off with.
Yeah, I don't think the game necessarily plays out to an incredibly satisfying conclusion or explanation of why you're doing what you're doing. But once you get further in you get some, like, it's kind of like Dead Cells in that sense, where you're unlocking better weapons for future runs and stuff. Just the fact that the way this game handles and feels, I thought was really, really solid. Like one of the best games to play from like a technical standpoint of this year. Like the weapons were all really interesting and differently. It felt different. The movement and the jumping and sort of, I guess, phasing. I don't know what to call it. Like dodging or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just felt like a shmup in a third person shooter. It was just something that I really it felt unique in a way to me that nothing else I've played this year or in many years has felt the way that Returnal did. This is why I put it over Metroid Dread, which is an excellent Metroid game. Yeah, I smashed Metroid Dread. I got it for Christmas. I beat it in a week or so. It is just a 2D Metroid game, though. I give big props to Mercury Steam, I think, because it's not Nintendo that developed this, and they did the previous one on 3DS as well, and they seem to have taken to how to build a Metroidvania game really, really well. It's lovely to play it in 60 FPS, but it is just standard Metroid. You're still going to get the same stuff: gravity suit, spin attack, missiles, super bombs, all that sort of stuff. It's an excellent Metroid game. It's not Metroid Prime 4, which is what I really want to play, but Metroid Dread is is easily the best game that's come out on Switch this year by a long, long way.
Oh, great.
And there's no way you won't enjoy it, but it's just another Metroid game.
Yeah.
They're all great. Every single one of them. Back for Blood, I didn't necessarily get on with, but you played a lot. You played a lot more of it than I have.
Yeah, I've played a lot more of it you have, and then I just hit a brick wall with it. And I actually think, to be honest, the brick wall is probably that the people I was playing with also stopped playing. So, we spoke about this endlessly. If you want to hear more chat about it, you can go back to our Left 4 Dead podcast. Like, I'm a big fan of these games, I think you need to play these games with a friend. And as soon as the friends sort of evaporate from being able to play them, they lose a lot of their appeal to me. And I also find that the levels in the game were long to a fault.
Too long.
Yeah, like hours long sometimes.
It does seem to spam the special zombies at you way more than the other game ever did, in a way that felt cheap. Yeah, it's lost something of its soul in the transition from Left 4 Dead to this. Although the card system, I think, is very good. I like that idea a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it is that I'm not sure how a game like this really exists in the long term in 2021, in that what people seem to come with live service games and like the leveling up models that were brought to us by the Call of Duty games. Like, I'm just not sure how a new game, because obviously Left 4 Dead still lives on, but I'm not sure how a new game sort of exists in the modern landscape and is a massive success. But you're right, like the card system differentiates it, made it interesting, and actually if you fell in love with that type of game, gave you a reason to keep going. But we'd randomly be playing this game and we'd come into contact with other players, and almost without fault, if we started speaking to them, they would say the back end of the game is not good, and that the front end of the game was the best part. And if this is the thing, is that I don't think I mentioned it, but like I really struggled with this. I think my gaming habits, I think like there's been a lot of decent games come out in 2021, but there's been no stellar games really for my money.
Yeah.
And because of that, sort of my game playing habits has sort of revolved around Apex Legends and whatever we've been playing for the podcast, maybe the odd short game thrown in every so often as well. So because of that, I actually struggled to come up with a top 3 for this. So yeah, I liked what I played of Back 4 Blood. Wish I played more, or at least wish I'd finished it so that I could say I've seen the whole thing. Yeah, and I guess that's all I've got to say about it. Certainly not my winner.
No, I don't really want you to say too much about Ratchet and Clank.
No,
that's our next podcast game.
Yeah, I guess like it's a Ratchet and Clank game that is very shiny, and if you like those games, which I do, you'll have fun with them. And I guess,
and you should like those games because they're really good.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't. Yeah, you're right. I don't want to go into it too much, but it's a good game.
Yeah, it's a nice sort of sparkly, shiny, happy way to start off our year of games in 2022 on this podcast.
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
Look forward to that next episode.
And it's the first one that looks like the movie, I think.
Excellent. I'm really looking forward to that time shift mechanic, and I hope it's not a bit of a damp squib. I hope it's, suitably impressive.
Yeah.
Because in the medium, it fucking wasn't. That whole like double split screen, different worlds or whatever was just not that impressive. So I really hope that this is. I'm probably expecting too much, wanting it to be Titanfall 2 vibes, but we'll see.
Your winner, Alex. Is that right?
Yeah. Lost Judgment. I mean, I think for as long as we carry on doing this, because I try and aim to set myself to play at least 1 or 2 Yakuza games every year, I've still got 4, 5, 6 to play. And whatever they do from, like, if they do number 8 as well, that's going to be in the next couple of years. Like, this is probably going to be close to a winner every year for me on a non-pod game. Lost Judgment has some... All right, so the premise of this game is that you are carrying on your role as this detective from Kamurocho, which is where the main Yakuza games are set, but you end up going over to Osaka, not Osaka. Where the fuck do you go? Hang on. Jesus Christ. Hold on a minute.
While you're looking this up, do you think we probably won't get another one, will we?
What?
Lost Judgment. Unless they change the sort of actor in the main character.
Oh, is he the one?
He's the one that they had, that his talent agency is like super archaic.
Is it really?
Yeah, so it was a big thing this year and it seemed like a revelation to them, but Sega suddenly realised they could make money by putting their games on PC that wasn't Total War.
Yeah, that's right.
They wanted to put the Yakuza games on PC, but the talent agency won't let this actor's likeness be used in any way that is not out with what they allowed for the game. And their worry for the PC is that essentially people can get at his assets and start making him do things that he never agreed to do, so they won't allow him. This is the talent agency that wouldn't even have a YouTube channel until like last year, I think they had one. So they're super strict and they just won't let them put it on PC. And the PC market is becoming such a big deal for Sega based on how much money they can make, that I just don't, in the industry, don't see how this series can progress if they've ostensibly got a franchise that they can't put on PC because they're being held over a barrel by another company. So it makes it difficult. So they would have to just cut him out and replace him. I guess is the only
I don't
thing
actually know how this game ends because I've not finished it yet. So
maybe we can.
I'd be interested to see how they.
Yeah. Because as far as I understood, not knowing these games intricately, but sort of hearing about them through you and having more than a passing interest, because I want to play these games, an interest in these games. From what I gathered, this was like their new tentpole series. They had finished with Kiryu, and this was like their new guy. And it was quite a big deal that they even got this guy on board, because in Japan, he's a famous actor.
So this is kind of with Yakuza Like a Dragon, which was the one that came out last year. That switched over to a turn-based, more traditional style JRPG, and they have kept the action fighting style from the old Yakuza games in this one. So this is kind of like they've split them off so that they could say, right, if you want to do the punching and kicking stuff you've done before, play the Judgment games, and if you want to experience what we're going for in this new idea we've got for how to take this series forward, stick with the mainline Yakuzas, but they are going to be in a different format now. So it was nice to go back and play that whole beat 'em up style of it again, especially as it's got like additional things of like you're a detective, so you're doing detecting, you're not just beating up Yakuza guys. This game handles some really sensitive shit, and it does it relatively well.
Oh, nice.
It's a little bit. It's a really bizarre world to be in, because effectively your detective gets sort of drawn into this case about a man who is arrested and on trial for groping a woman in the subway in Japan. And he is effectively, at this point, I don't know for certain, he's effectively used that as an alibi to get out of the fact that a person who bullied his son and caused his son to commit suicide is brutally murdered somewhere else in like a warehouse while he's already in custody for groping this woman. And in his trial, he actually says, people are going to go find this kid, by the way, and you're going to find he's murdered and you're going to find him here. So he like tells them in his trial that this is where this kid is, but he's got an alibi because he was already being arrested at that point. So you then have to go to this school and investigate like bullying there. So a lot of this game is set in a school. And the main character, Yagami, sort of has to befriend a lot of school children and fight a lot of school children and infiltrate a lot of school clubs for a reason to be at the school, including a dancing club, which is like you get like a Dance Revolution minigame where he's teaching young girls to dance.
Excellent.
The minigames in this game are fucking insane. Like the way that they make you join these clubs is constantly excellent. So you've got the dancing minigame, which is probably the worst one, which is just you're effectively like playing Guitar Hero. Then you've got a robot club. You go to the robotics club and you basically do like Robot Wars, where you have to build a robot and spec it all up and you actually control the robot in these like Robot Wars fights. Then, because you get given a skateboard in this game and you can skate around the town to get around quicker, you have to join a skate club where half of it is beating their scores Tony Hawk style, but really toned down. The other half is skateboard races where you have to like grind on stuff and jump over things to get speed boosts, which is really good fun. Then there was one of them, you go to join the video game esports club and you basically have to get good at Virtua Fighter to the point where, because they think that this guy's cheated at Virtua Fighter because he beat some pro. So you have to like investigate and find out how this guy cheated. And you actually play him at the end and he has got something that makes your inputs stop working. And it really fucked me up because it was not punching when I was pressing punch. And this guy kicked my ass. And that's actually part of the game, that he's mugged you off. What else was there? There's a casino club. Well, there's this girl you have to go investigate who goes to off doing a gambling in a casino. So you've got to play like it takes all the stupid mini games that are around and then weaves them into a story that forces you to play them, which is excellent. That's what you always want. It's like, okay, well, I could go and do the fucking play in the arcades and play Virtua Fighter, but why would I bother? But then when it makes you play it in the game, you actually get really into it and be like, oh yeah, fuck yeah. Yeah, I'm going to learn how to get good at Virtua Fighter. That's awesome. I swear there was one more club that I really wanted to talk about, but I've totally forgotten what it was. Hang on. We'll cut this bit out. But yeah, not the robot.
Scalextric's car racing, which drove me off the end of the fucking planet because I couldn't win.
I just used a guide for that. I never tried. That was nonsense. I'm not learning all that shit. It's utter bollocks. Oh fuck. There has to be one more thing that I was going to talk about. Hang on. Let's just figure it out. Hang on. Let's do school clubs. Every school club ranked. Oh, I'm going to get spoilers for myself here, aren't I? That robotics club is so... Oh, yes! That's what it is! Fucking boxing! So there's a kid who's like an absolute monster. There's some guy going around the town as like the masked boxer, and he like beats up criminals, and they think it's this guy from the school, so you have to go and try and investigate this boxing club, and it's got a really fucking fleshed out boxing game in it. And it plays like Fight Night.
Oh, brilliant.
And you like this guy...
Wait, so are you at boxing? Kids?
Yeah. No, actual adults now. You go off to a boxing club that this kid from school goes to as well. He's like this absolute tank, and he totally fucks you up.
Is this like, do they know you're an adult, or do they think you're like never? You know, what's that kid show where they're like the policeman woman goes to school and pretends to be a kid?
Oh yeah, like that meme of Steve Buscemi, and he's like, "Hello, fellow kids." No, so at first you join this mystery research club. And that's how you get your way into the school. So the chairman basically wants you to investigate bullying in the school to try and find out like what actually happened. Did this kid really get bullied? Did he kill himself because of it? Because this kid who's just been murdered was apparently a bully. So we need to figure out what the fuck's going on. So that's like the adult reason that he's in this school. But he needs a reason to be able to keep coming and going. And you join this mystery research club as like an outside advisor, which allows you to be there. But the girl who's like the head of this club constantly thinks you're like a paedophile. So you have to keep going around trying to prove that you're not a paedophile to this girl. But you've been putting spy cameras around everywhere and all this kind of shit. So yeah, there's all that shit going on. But the boxing is so good. Like, I'm annoyed when I can't progress the boxing minigame because it's like one of the best boxing games I've ever played. It's so fun. You've got proper, like, you know, you put your guard, you can go body shots, head shots, you've got power moves, and then he teaches you like better moves on top that are totally different. It's not like the fighting from the actual game. It's a totally separate style of doing it. Fucking awesome. And yeah, the game itself is still as compelling as it always was because you've still got to do all these crazy like sub stories and all these investigation things where you're like using spy cameras and drones. And yeah, if you need somewhere to get started and you don't want to go straight into the Yakuza games because there's like 8 of them, these 2 Judgment games are both brilliant, but this one is definitely a massive step up from the first one.
Excellent.
And I cannot believe it's my game of the year purely because it's got cool skateboarding and boxing in it. It's got nothing to do with the actual game. So yeah, that's my winner. Is Lost Judgment. Now let's hear about your winner.
My winner is Hitman 3, and I just think like the story of the Hitman games is absolutely fantastic, and that it's like a game that Square Enix were constantly disappointed with the sales figures of. That prior to the new Hitman games coming out, the developer was IO Interactive, were about to go out of business, and this was like their last roll of the dice to try and stay in business and keep their jobs. And they just sort of created that, like, this sort of semi-serious but doesn't take it sort of tongue-in-cheek game in which you're doing ridiculous things. Like this guy's blatantly, he's like a bald guy with a barcode in the back of his head, and he's like infiltrating his way into like on stage to be like catwalk models or drummers in a band on stage. Or I just love the playground that they've created to let you sort of engage with and mess around. And then beyond that, I love the way they've supported it. So like when Hitman 3 came out, Hitman 1 and 2 also comes into the game with updated controls and updated visuals.
So good.
And it's all in there with all the DLC. And then they've just announced that they're going to continue with sort of like another season of Hitman in 2022.
Nice.
In which more comes out. And I just love that they've created this amazing sort of sandbox playground that is just so inclusive, and what a product it is.
Yeah.
And and just like the way that so like
I think if you go back to the original Hitman games, they're basically unplayable. They're so difficult and clunky, whereas these games still retain the feel of it, because there was a couple in between, wasn't there? You've got like Hitman and Hitman Silent Assassin and all that shit. Then you've got those two ones on the Xbox 360 that was trying to be like shooters or whatever.
Games,
yeah, where they basically ruined it. And now these ones have been the perfect marriage of both, where, as you said, you're doing all this wacky shit. There's multiple ways to do all the assassinations, but the game is, if you want it to, will help you do it.
Yeah.
The way you're supposed to do it. Because those are the bits that put me off all the old ones, because it's so all over the place.
And the variety in things you can do is also amazing. So, like, I'm trying to think of a good example. Is like you get the one, there's a level where you have to, the first level where you're in Dubai, in the Burj Khalifa, I think, but basically you're on a floor and you're at a party, and you've got to sort of, this is like the classic Hitman like game mode, in which you start as an invitee to the party, and you've got to try and wheedle your way around to figure out who your targets are and different ways that you want to kill them.
Yeah,
classic, lots of people mingling in crowds, as you would like to see. But then there's also one where you go to Dartmoor in England, and you go to this mansion that's got this lady in it, and her family are all there. Basically, she heard that an assassin was out to get her, so she locked herself up. But you arrive when there's a private investigator arriving, and you can kill the private investigator and then embark upon this like Poirot, Miss Marple like mission of discovery to find out who killed who. And if you follow it, you can treat it like a Hitman level and go off piste and become a security guard and find your way to infiltrate into different areas of the house and kill who you need to kill. Or you can just stay as a private investigator and sort of wheedle your way around and sort of find clues that lead you to different areas that eventually lead to like a big sort of, again, Poirot final where the sort of killer is revealed, and then you can go after them.
That is magnificent. And then that's so clever.
It is, and it does things like that throughout the game that are just so well done. And then there's like, but even like, I don't know, little things, and this is just another classic one where you end up in a mansion in Italy, I think, and you can masquerade as a man who is, it seems like he killed his mum, but he's like a proper mummy's boy, and he's your target, and you can basically give him a nervous breakdown by pretending to be his dead mum's ghost, and then and a psychiatrist arrives, and you can be the psychiatrist and basically like strangle him while he's unloading all these life problems to you about how he struggled with his mummy issues and stuff like that. And it's a game that...
Is he telling you about you as the ghost as well?
No, so the ghost one, he ends up killing himself.
Oh, so it's not like you pretend to be the ghost, then he goes to therapy, and then you go talk to him about how you were just the ghost that made him go to therapy and kill him in therapy.
No. So there's multiple ways to do this, and then there's like other ones where you like, and it's just these little incidental stories as well. Like when you arrive, it's not obvious how to get into the level, and then you walk past and you hear this lady shouting at her brother. She's got her brother a job in the house as like a waiter boy, a sort of kitchen hand sort of guy, and you can, like, while he's arguing with his sister, you can sneak into his bedroom and steal his uniform and key, and then just like walk in, and it's just like, it just feels intelligently made, but it's also really funny at the same time. And I don't want to.
I wish I was better at these games.
Well, I don't want to go into too much, because I'm convinced I can figure out a way that we can play this game together. and enjoy it. I need to think about it, because
Yeah.
so, like, hand off the
Right.
controller is just like is the most fun I've had playing with this game.
Yeah, it might need to be another visit.
Yeah, I think so. And it's just so good. It's so good. And I guess
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, best.
Lost Judgment and Hitman 3.
That's it. I'm looking for the list. There it goes. Best 2021 non-pod game. Alex has got nominees Metroid Dread and Returnal, with the winner being Lost Judgment, and mine are Back 4 Blood, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, with the winner being Hitman 3. Now, Alex, back to the standard. No, this is not a standard formula. We're still going to go on with this. Best old non-pod game. Do you want to start off, since I've been talking a lot?
Yeah, sure. So my two nominations that are not the winner. First of all,
number 3 is, I don't think.
Rocket Knight Adventures is the Konami platform game on the Mega Drive that was one of the games that I did for Sega Mania, and is a fantastic platformer that you absolutely need to play. I think I may have talked about it on one of the old pods anyway, but I will save too much chat about it, because people should buy Sega Mania issue 4 and they can read it in there. But it's got a really cool mechanic where you have sort of like a jetpack in it. It's also half of the game is like a shoot 'em up, where you're flying about on this jetpack and shooting stuff like you would be in like Gradius or whatever. So it's just so inventive, so underrated from that era, because Sonic was just the thing on Mega Drive. But this game holds up perfectly, and yeah, it's a fantastic platform. It's the best game I've played for Sega Mania so far, easily. My other nominee is Slay the Spire, which David is already a convert of and has played it several years ago, I guess, at this point. I've always wanted to get into it, and then it finally went on sale on Switch, even though it's on Game Pass anyway. But playing it on Switch was exactly the way I needed to play this, because it is so addictive.
I'd like to see this on a phone, I think, would be my way.
Is it not on phone?
Yeah, I think it is actually. But
I think I tried to get my dad to get it on his iPad.
I think it's quite expensive for a phone game, which I think is why I've never bought it. Let me have a quick look. Yeah, carry on, sorry, and I'll just shout out the price.
Well, how do you describe it? It's like
it's sort of
turn-based dungeon crawler with a card system.
Yeah, it's sort of, to me, it's like what's that run-based game we mentioned earlier on in this?
Darkest Dungeon? No.
Oh. It's like Dead Cells, but for but a card game version, in which
because you get cards off of every enemy you defeat, don't you? So you can kind of add to your deck as you go along, and
it's £9.
That's not too bad.
No, it's just
a lot, but it's
paying for that for a phone game. Yeah.
No, not when I've got it on Switch. I don't need to do that anymore. I have fallen off this game a little bit, because I've actually I think I've hit a bit of a wall. I can't really get past I think it's the third boss.
Okay.
So I've got 3 of the characters now. So I've unlocked obviously the standard warrior guy, and then I got the guy with all like the potions and the little like kunai and stuff. The poison guy. I love that. He's my favorite character.
I love how each character makes you play differently. To play the character well, you've got to play differently. Yeah.
The orb guy is a pretty big learning curve, because you've got to like sort of set up the next orb that he's going to attack with and all that kind of stuff. Just like one of the best kind of card-based games I think I've ever played. Yeah, I mean, it's not a lot of them, but I find it really difficult to describe this game. But it is just an excellent kind of one more go, one more run kind of game, or pick it up and play and just do a quick run sort of thing.
It follows the classic. I might be wrong about this, but it's the first one that came onto my radar. It sort of set the scene for the other games that have come since then and done the same thing in maybe slightly different ways, in which you'll get a base deck of cards, and as you progress through the game, you unlock other cards, and you sacrifice cards that you've got to get better cards and upgrade the cards you've got, which then allow you to, and it encourages you, and you have to do well, develop a play style, and that is both responding to the cards that you're getting, and also keeping in mind the strengths and weaknesses of the character that you're going on your run with. So like this is the game with the poison character, is that right?
I love him, because you can do things where like you do more damage to an enemy that's already poisoned, but you want to be setting up with a move that poisons all 3 of them in one go, and some cards where you can like do a move and it will make a copy of that card, then go into your discard pile, so that next time you're going to get shitloads of them one after another. You can end up doing like 8 attacks instead of your standard 3.
Yeah, and you can get to the point where you can duplicate cards. So like you've got a card that will maybe do 1 poison damage, which is almost nothing. But if you can get another card in your deck that duplicates cards and lets you reuse cards, you can end up using you can end up doubling the amount of cards you've got of it, and you'll then be able to reuse them again. So you can just stack up really heavy damage. The poison character was my favorite when I played.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I haven't got the 4th one yet because I can't beat the 3rd boss. But I will be going back to this game because it's very, very addictive.
I mix this up with my number 3, which is Monster Train. I think it is.
Go for it.
Is it an electricity-based one? Because that may be the Monster Train, one of the Monster Train ones.
I don't know who the last character is.
But Monster Train follows a very, very similar idea to Slay the Spire. In that you have a character, you have a deck, you've got to, every time you beat a character, you can upgrade cards and gather money, and you've got, the difference with this one, that I, again, like, because it's been a couple of years since I played Slay the Spire, on your train, you've got to choose what track. So basically, you're on a route, and when you beat a boss, you might have an option to go on which way to go, whether that's to go and fight more enemies or...
That's the same in Slay the Spire.
Same idea.
Because you can go to the bonfires to rest, or you can go to a treasure
right.
chest and stuff. Yeah.
I might have to buy this game. I'm going to see how much it is on Switch, but I might get it on my phone. Then I'm just going to start.
Should have told you when it was in
Slay the Spire chat.
Yeah, let's do it.
But Monster Train follows exactly the same format as Slay the Spire, except you happen to be on a train rather than someone going through a dungeon. And if you like Slay the Spire, you like Monster Train, basically.
Perfect. I hope that's on Switch.
My number 2, Gears Tactics. So I got a PC this year. I'd always had my eyes on, because as we've said already, I love Gears games, but I think like strategy games like this only work well if you've got a mouse and keyboard. Yes.
Slay the Spire is on sale for £8 on Switch.
Oh, is it? Okay, I'm going to go and get that after this podcast.
Until, well, I don't know how long, but yeah, don't forget to get that afterwards.
Yeah.
Right, carry on.
Gears Tactics, yeah. I love strategy games, but because I'd never had a PC, and I think these games are only really coming to their own on a mouse and keyboard, I'd always sort of ignored them. So when I got my PC out and this was on Games Pass, I thought this is an excellent opportunity for me to. And the fun thing is.
So you've not played this on the Xbox at all?
No.
But it is on there on Game Pass as well, isn't it?
Yeah. The thing I like about it is that it's a top-down tactics game with... It's essentially plays like an XCOM
right?
game, yeah, in which you're like a small
those are great.
Yeah, you've got a mission, you've got to get in and get out and complete your mission, and there's a cool variety of missions. Sometimes are time-based, which makes you be super aggressive and push at enemies. Other ones you've got to defend a point, and you've got to try and split your forces up to try and just hold these points and basically survive long enough to be rescued. And then there's other ones where you've got to go searching for things and people within the maps, and then either get out or continue to the end. There's one fun one that I particularly like, in which it's almost like a corridor, and you've got to get from one end to the other. And what are those things? I'm now blanking. In the Gears of War games, they're like those massive spiders that fire things out of their backside. Yeah, and like they're kind of like that, but basically it's following. Basically, the damage is like sheets of damage, and they're basically attacking this area as you move through the game. So every you've got to get to a point at the end of the level. It's got like the fog of war stuff. You're at one end of a bridge, let's say, and as you're crossing the bridge, basically you can't go back because the area of damage is creeping up. And sometimes you use krill to do the same thing,
right?
And you've basically got to push forward to get to this area. So like both, you've got enemies coming from like basically attack coming from behind that you've got to run from, but also push forward into like waves of enemies, which is really, really good. And it's got boss fights, which for a game like this I never thought would be fun, but actually I did enjoy them. I really rate Gears Tactics, and it's a shame.
Does it have any stuff like XCOM where you got like base building in between missions, or is it straight up just
base building? Trying to think,
because I always found that like the bit I enjoyed the least of XCOM.
I
like
don't
the missions
think
more.
There's any base building. What it does have is it has the same permadeath that XCOM has.
Okay.
And you can upgrade the armor and things and weapons that you're characters that you're using have got. And it also gets to the point where they'll either get injured or something will happen, and basically if you put them into a mission, because you've got like your standard medics, your gunners, your grenadiers, your shotgun folk, you've got to try and you'll have your best characters, but you've got to do missions one after the other, and by putting a character into one mission you then can't use it for the next mission.
Right.
So you can't just always go in with your best characters. You've got to try and split them up and have split them. Yeah, it's just intelligently done, basically. And it's a shame that it didn't really get the love it got. But I guess Gears is a console game, and this is a PC game, so I can understand why it didn't quite grab on. And we've, unsurprisingly, because we talk about this all the time, got the same winner.
Of course.
Apex Legends lives on, and it's now been my most played game for the last 3 years in the bounce.
I was going to say, like, when we were originally doing this and we didn't split them between like 2021 versus old, like, to try and qualify this as a 2021 game, like, do we think that this game is just continually getting better? Is it now in the best state that it's ever been?
I think it comes and goes. Well, yeah, I mean, the fact I can't get they've had to take out guns at the moment. I
mean, in terms of, that sort of thing.
We don't like the new map as much as we've liked older maps. I don't particularly like the Battle Pass as much this season.
No, I was already saying to you that I don't. This is probably the worst one I've experienced. But we're getting better at it, which is the problem.
We are.
It's becoming more and more.
My favourite gun's basically not there. Well, it is, but for the amount of times I actually get it.
Yeah, I think I'll vow to you from this point on, if I find a Spitfire in a thing, it's yours.
It's mine, thanks.
Yeah.
I just love that boy. But yeah, you're right. Like, I'm as engaged with it, if not more, I think, more engaged with the game now than I was 2 years ago, because I now understand it in a way that I didn't understand it when I first started playing. I know the game inside out, and I'm comfortable with it in a way. We still have our moments where we have rage, but I still think about this game all the time.
I mean, it has to be one of my favourite games ever at this point. I struggle to think of any online game I've ever enjoyed as much as this, or thought about. I mean, Overwatch probably. I thought about all the time when I wasn't playing it, and I would watch videos all the time, but I never felt as... Oh, did I? Maybe I did feel better at that game than I do at this one. It's hard to tell.
I had moments. Like, I really very much enjoyed the different roles in which Overwatch allows in a way that this game doesn't really have the same... in the same way. Like, I really liked being Mercy, so a healer. And it was just unlike anything I'd ever done in a game before. Was being a healer, and I just enjoyed playing differently. Or you get, like, lots of people were good at being tanks. You were a good diva main.
Only at the beginning.
I think the variety in play styles I liked in Overwatch. I think it happens to an extent in Apex Legends, but not quite as much if you do duos. You can get absolutely rolled in a game of Apex and have nothing to do with it. Yeah. A game of Overwatch and you have nothing to do with it in a way that at least you've got a fighting chance in Apex, I think. You can get beaten because you're not good enough, but that's not... You can lose games when you are good enough in Overwatch. And getting rolled, just having that thing, the payload just being relentlessly pushed at you is morale destroying. Yeah.
Sometimes it's a mercy if you just have your game end when you're dead, and you don't have to continually respawn and go through the same hell trudging through a match that you're definitely going to lose, but you can't do anything about it. Whereas at least this one, when you're dead, you just go straight back in and start again.
And those moments where everything clicks for us and we play really well and we pull off a maneuver where we just like mercilessly destroy a team is so...
There's very little else like it. Yeah. I think we had one yesterday.
Yeah.
That win that we had last night after we'd had a really rough hour.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, when we were at our lowest, we pulled out a win that felt really satisfying.
And then after that, we started playing well again. This is what I was going on about my bleeding positive thought process, because like it can't... I know there is a bit of a very light skill-based matchmaking going on even in normal modes. But the drasticness in which our ability changed there, I just don't believe it. That is what happened. Like because it was like it was like between games we went from just getting rolled, and then we got a bit of confidence in us, and then after that we went flying, and we were coming into fights, and even fights we were losing, we were doing damage, leaving our mark on a team. Like someone was getting downed or killed.
I feel like I think that win maybe came from me and you just being like, right, we're going to stop doing challenges and just play the characters we want, because that's the first time we did that. I think we won straight away.
Yeah.
When we were with Valkyrie and Loba, we just went, right, fuck it. It's just a game that I don't see myself falling off at any time soon, even if the next battle pass is even worse.
I'll still do it and moan about it the whole time, probably.
Yeah. So there's only one winner. There aren't two winners in this category. We
Apex
both
Legends is
love
the best,
Apex Legends.
Old non-pod game of 2021, with runners-up being Slay the Spire, Rocket Knight Adventures, Gears Tactics, and Monster Train. Right, so the penultimate. We've spoken about lots of good. Now it's time to get onto the worst game that we played in 2021 for the podcast. So for this one, the nominations are Sea of Solitude, Alien Isolation, The Medium, Days Gone, Limbo, and Parasite Eve. That's some shit-ass games. Limbo is probably the most disappointing one of that, because if you'd asked us when we played this game first time round, that must have been in that would have definitely been in our top 10s for a game of the year.
I've got a tattoo of it, so yeah.
Yeah, would have been up. I'd be surprised if it didn't win that year. I wonder what it went up against.
I think it probably did.
Yeah. So yes, that's the biggest disappointment. Doesn't make it the worst game, I guess.
Yeah, I think we've played Inside, which is probably the better game. I didn't think that when I first played Inside, but having gone back to play Limbo, I now know for sure that it is better than that. Yeah, right, though. It was just a disappointment. It's just a disappointment because we've moved on from that quite a lot.
Yeah.
And there was nothing really striking about it anymore. It was just one of that era of game that maybe kickstarted it, but has been bettered.
The other, I think we can say...
I'm not having Parasite Eve as worse.
No,
I think you're just struggling to find a fifth one.
Well, no, I think, like... Again, like, as much as I like this game. Yeah, it's not a bad game. And actually it probably was a bit harsh putting it on there. I think because it had just come after, I think when I filled this out, I was also thinking about most bullshit award, and I was thinking like, that is so bad. I mean it, like, it has to get cut because I actually like this game and I don't hate it, but I think I just wanted to say, like, I don't know why I like this game, like, because, like, the story's rubbish, it looks like shit, it's probably too long, like some of the fights are like, it's mad, like, you go into a museum and start fighting a dinosaur, and then you're fighting like an alien, and then you're just fighting normal people, and then there's like the midichlorian mitochondria stuff is mental.
Yeah, it's really hard to understand what's going on half the time in that game.
The voice acting is terrible. Like, I feel like if I was to list everything in this game, like, if every, almost apart from sort of the fighting mechanics, everything you list about this game taken on its own is bad, but somehow it's more than the sum of its parts. Like, it comes together in a way that is absolutely wonderful. So I think that's all I wanted to say. And, like, it is a stupid fucking game, but it's still so good.
I'm in agreement with that. It is stupid. Right. So
give me your Days Gone chat, because I like that game.
I think we've probably covered what my issues are with it anyway, in that it does have some stupid decisions that were made, like the fact that you have to drive off to come back and get a mission from where you just were. The relationship stuff is dumb between Deacon and Sarah. Deacon is a twat. I didn't really like any of the characters in this game all that much. None of them were really that likable.
No. Oh, assholes.
But this was me struggling to find games that I genuinely hated, because I don't hate Limbo. I still like it. It's just not what it was. I don't hate Days Gone either, because the gameplay loop was great. It was just like a solid 7, and we didn't have a lot of those this year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not going to shit on Days Gone too much.
The Medium.
Of course, everybody who wants to hear more about any of these games, just go find that episode and listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely. The medium, I think, was a disappointment. I went into this
Yes.
game really looking forward to it, and it just was
People
a bit
compared it to Silent Hill, and
yeah, and it was
it's got
just a
this
bit
interesting
meh.
mechanic, but
But
it was
yeah,
just a
and
bit.
the mechanic just never related into gameplay in a way that I hoped it would. Like it
No,
was just
didn't use it enough.
no, it was just like what you're looking at on this screen just now. Like just two characters in two different settings moving around. Sometimes you had to interact with the ones on the left. Sometimes you had to interact with the one on the right.
It was, that was a bit too ambitious. I don't think they really had enough to back up that idea that they wrote down on paper of, you can be in both worlds at the same time and controlling the same person individually. But it never really came together in a way that felt genuinely groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And the story was a bit shit as well.
Talking of shit stories, Sea of Solitude is, like we've spoken about, I don't want to go into
Garbage.
too much, but we've already, it's utter garbage that is one note, on the nose, the most bog standard. Like, if someone was to say, like, make me up a fake game about mental health, this is the exact game you would make.
About one person's mental health that you don't know.
Yeah. In Alien Isolation, just, I don't think a game's broken. Like, Doom 64 probably broke me, but like the thought of having to play a game for a podcast, there's not many games that would fill me full of dread. Like it never got to this point, obviously, but there's points I'm like, do I just need to stop doing this podcast because I am hating my life? Like, I should like games.
Yeah, you really did not enjoy this.
And I was forcing myself through this game that I've just loathed from start to finish. And that's the only game in this list that I truly didn't want to play.
Yeah. I think there are more elements about this that are good than some of the other.
There are redeeming features, and as we discussed, to sort of repeat ourselves, it's just not my type of game.
So should we put it at number 3?
Yeah.
Sorry, what were you going to say?
Which I'm surprised it's not my type of game because I do like horror games, so I just
stop the insta-death shit.
Yeah.
It's not fun. It's just not fun. You spoilt being in a beautifully crafted world that took a lot of effort and reverence, felt so authentic, and you spoilt it by making us have to repeat bullshit over and over again and getting insta-killed.
Mm-hmm.
Just stop it.
Sea of Solitude wins because it just brings nothing to the table for me.
Yeah. It was, self-indulgent garbage.
Yeah.
And the medium was just disappointing. And there we go. Read them out.
So, worst game of 2021 for the Winners You podcast. Alien Isolation in the medium, notable runners-up. And the winner being Sea of Solitude.
A game, lest we remind ourselves, we played by accident.
Yeah, because I would play someone else.
Unhappy accident it was.
Talking of unhappy accidents,
we are finally
the complete
here.
Opposite. We've made it to the best game of 2021, I guess. So to run through the nominations quickly, we have Super Mario World, Doom 64, Resident Evil Village, Portal 2, Gears of War Ultimate, Death's Door, and Halo Infinite. What a list. That's a good list. It's a strong list.
It is a good list. Yeah, we've played some great games this year. I will quickly shift our way through Halo Infinite because that was the last episode we did, so we really don't need to talk about that anymore. I think they really nailed the gameplay. It's possibly the best Halo has ever played, but at the same time, some of the decisions and the lack of variety really let it down.
Yeah.
So it's not going to make the top 3, but I definitely played Halo Infinite and did not feel like it was not like they made the right decision to delay it. It was suitably fun to play. I wasn't like disappointed in it or let down like I probably was with 4.
Yeah.
I didn't even play 5 because of that reason. So for me, this feels like the step that Halo needed to take. I just hope they do more with it in future.
Yep.
What do you want to talk? Gears of Go? I mean, we've already talked about Gears of War as well.
I think Gears of War deserves to be in the sort of first list. I'm not sure it makes it to a final, so maybe we just cut it and be done with it. I think it still remains one of my standout games of all time. Still one of my favourites. I think, and I know I'm in the meeting. I'm quite happy to be wrong in this because I know I am, but I still like the story. It's stupid and it's dumb and it's just a big meathead action movie, but I like meathead action movies. I think they're fun. Like Demolition Man is a fun movie, so it's just like
I like a lot of Arnie films.
Yeah, it's just like it's just good fun, and it propels you through the story. And yeah, I can go back to this game at any point and still have a great time. But it's probably not going to make the final list.
Well, one question I will put to you is, why did you put Doom 64 over this? Because although Doom 64 was a very nice surprise, I'm surprised that you enjoy it more than one of your favourite games ever.
I think I enjoyed it more because of when I come to it. So like I knew going into this I would like Gears of War, and it was almost like putting on a sort of, I don't know, like a pair of pants that you know what they're going to feel like when you put on. You know they're going to be comfy. You know you're going to like them. They're going to keep everything in place. Like you know what you're getting from it, and it's the thing that like I always sort of have an internal battle with, and that like this is a bad example because I think it probably is a better game, but like between if you've got a game like Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2, to have the same impact with Super Mario Galaxy 2, it has to be, in my opinion, way better than 1, because just to do the same game again, it's less impressive. And because I've played Gears of War so much now, it doesn't have the same wow that it once did, but I still love it, if that makes sense. Whereas Doom 64 was a game that I didn't expect to like, and actually was pleasantly surprised in how much of a shit-hot game that still is. So I think that's probably why it's up there. But I don't think Gears of War makes it. I think it's cut time for that.
Okay. I'll cut Portal 2, because even though I still really enjoyed it, we've already discussed it and why you didn't enjoy it as much, and it's already won an award, or it's been in an award anyway, for best gameplay. Sure. So I'll cut it for that reason. Okay. We're getting down to the meat of it now.
What have we got? 4 left and we need 3. So
5 have we got? Because we've got Mario Galaxy. Are we cutting Mario Galaxy?
I thought that was still there. Oh yeah, so we've got 5.
Mario Galaxy, Death's Door, Doom.
Death's Door is one that the more I talk about it, the more it climbs in my estimations. Then we've got Super Mario World, which obviously is going to make the final 3.
Yeah.
Did I like? I don't know.
For me, Resident Evil Village is my game of this year. 2021 is the games that came out this year. That's my game of the year. Has it been? No, we cut it out of something, didn't we? Did we?
I take it. Well, obviously you would, but
best surprise. Yeah.
Does Mario Galaxy beat out Death's Door and Doom 64 for you? Obviously it does, because it's in your list. I almost if I'm taking forward one of my 2, I hate that I've got Doom 64's 2, because I almost want to reward Death's Door.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
More than I want to reward Doom 64.
Yeah, there is a bit of recency bias, because they're new games and we kind of want to do that. Because Death's Door came out this year and we really loved it. Mario Galaxy we played this year, but we'd already played it and it was still good, but there were elements of it that we probably weren't as impressed with as we were originally.
Yeah, I remember it controlling like an absolute dream, which it just doesn't. In Doom 64, everything positive I'm saying about Doom 64, I'm saying with the caveat that I'm ignoring the final boss. Can I really have a winner of someone in the top? We can't have a game in the top 3 best games that we've played in the year that made me rage quit and uninstall.
Good point. And it did win most bullshit. But it's also in the top 3 for best surprise. So perhaps it's already had its due both ways.
So I would quite like to see Death's Door come forward. but also
I think so too, actually.
But also, I get what you're saying with Mario. Resident Evil Village has to go. Mario World has to go forward. I mean, because Resident Evil, you liked it so much. So really, to me, the conversation
I was
is
so
Mario Galaxy
pleased.
and Death's Door.
Yeah, I was so pleased that Resident Evil Village was as enjoyable for me as it was. It just felt like playing Resi 4 again, just modernized, and I was so pleased to that. So we're kind of left with, it looks as if we've basically got, as you said, Death's Door or Mario Galaxy, and I'm more than happy for Death's Door to be in here, because
I'm trying to think.
Mario Galaxy, I don't want 2 Mario games in here. I just don't want it.
I did love the soundtrack in Mario Galaxy. I think it's way better than
fucking amazing, isn't
it?
Yeah, Death's Door wasn't terrible, but Mario Galaxy soundtrack is excellent.
Is it cheating to cut Mario Galaxy because we don't want 2 Mario games in the list?
Well, I mean, it's our list, but it is totally cheating. But we shouldn't have played 2 Mario games in the same year if we were going to be bothered about this problem.
It's going to be a problem. I would feel comfortable with Death's Door, but I can also see and feel comfortable with a Mario Galaxy in there.
Well, I've got Village in there, so I think I'm going to have to leave this one up to you.
Well, let's go Death's Door then, and we'll keep the Mario clean.
Okay. So,
but it could have gone on. I could have seen an argument either way, and I think it's got to be Death's Door, Resident Evil Village, then the winner Super Mario World.
So you want Death's Door as number 3?
Yeah. I mean, okay. I'm happy that it's there. I'm not going to fight it any more than that, I don't think.
I mean, nothing more needs to be said about Super Mario World, does it?
No, it's the winner.
What do people need to know? It's just fucking excellent.
It's one of the best.
There's nothing bad about it. Yeah, it really is. I'm very glad we played it. It has spoiled the Game of the Year best game because it was a cheat. That is a cheat. Putting Mario World in there is a cheat code.
So what you're saying is next year we're going to be playing Ocarina of Time for the cheat game, or
but you don't like that though. So you don't like that. We might play Link to the Past this year actually.
Yeah,
because I think that's got an anniversary maybe coming up, or we've want to play Crusade of Senti or whatever it is, so we might shoehorn that in there.
Yeah.
Game of the Year 2021 is Super Mario World, but we've got 2 2021 games in there as well.
Yeah, we do. I'm now thinking about what a Zelda list would, if we went on some sort of Zelda rampage at some point this year and we just had an award category for the best Zelda game of 2021. I wonder if I would have a Sonic moment in which I just suddenly love the series. I may well, because I like Ocarina of Time and I like Link to the Past. It's the rest I'm not into.
Let's not forget that Breath of the Wild 2 really should be releasing this year.
I forgot that as well. Breath of the Wild, oh my god. Yeah. Anyway, that's a talk for January 2023.
Yep.
I guess that brings
us.
So next up, we've got
awards.
Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart coming up.
Yeah, looking forward to that a lot.
Yes. Remind me of the podcast in case I've done it wrong again.
Oh, what, the email address?
The email address.
A winner is you pod@gmail.com.
Yes, don't look on the video, it's wrong. And you can follow, if you're listening to the podcast, go and subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is A Winner Is You Podcast, and vice versa. If you're watching us on video, you can also follow me on Twitter @DavidSmiley1 and SuperThrillix, or find out what we're up to and what the new pod is when it goes live on A Winner Is You Pod on Twitter as well. That's it. We've done it. We've made it to the end.
Thanks for sticking through the end, you and all the listeners.
Yes.
It's been a long one, but a fun one.
Yep, and I guess we'll catch you guys soon. Happy New Year. Keep giving.
Yeah.
No, I just stole it. I can't say that.
You didn't do your full-on proper I have been David. You got to do
that. I guess on that bombshell, I have been David, he has been Alex, we have been A Winner Is You. And I'm out.
Keep gaming. Goodbye, doggies. Both of them.
Nice entrance right at the end.
Yep.